Hello and welcome back to SuperCoach Edge. But we are back, Liam, with a bit of a special episode here because we are going to do a very quick fire recap of the official preseason games. And we're going to be discussing a number of players in each game, the most notable ones, obviously, for SuperCoach. And we're going to be detailing how they went, how they performed. But then off the back of that, we're going to keep it quick and we're going to consider them on the basis of four categories, either being a lock, consider, pick with caution, or avoid. So we're going to keep things ticking over. And Liam, the first game is Cats versus the Dons. Do you want to kick us off?
Yes, let's kick off. We'll start with some Cats players. So first up, we do have Max Holmes. Now, he didn't set the world on fire in this game. There's just the 51 points, despite having 22 disposals, three marks. Had decent time on ground. So probably nothing to worry about if you are one to consider watching, if you do want to pick him. But for me at this stage, is probably only really a consider, or maybe even a pick with caution.
Yep, I totally agree there on all the points. And yeah, I mean, he has been in my team fleetingly. So on the basis of that, I will say consider. But yeah, I'm kind of veering towards a pick with caution, but probably consider. I'll say
I
consider.
think it's a consider. Yeah, I think pick with caution was a bit harsh. He hasn't been in my side. I'll put it that way.
Yep. Oh, that makes sense then. Well, let's move on to the next player, and it is Tom Stewart. So another solid game from Stewart. He scored 95 with 94% disposal efficiency as well, and he even had some midfield time as well, 30% CBAs. But at 32 years of age, it's worth questioning whether he's still the right super coach pick. 18 disposals he had in this game, four marks, 83% time on ground, and as I said, 94% disposal efficiency is always a good thing at Supercoach. But for me, I just find it really hard to select him at his current price point. Back in the day, yes, but I would say now he's kind of more of a pick with caution. Don't know where he's going to, line up. Is it in the midfield? Is it off halfback? I just don't know. And it's kind of tied in there with Max Holmes as well because they kind of, I
Yeah,
guess they have a bit of correlation between each other, cramping each other's style. So for me, I would say a pick with caution.
yeah, agree. Pick with caution for me. Hasn't I haven't really considered him. Might be one we pick up later, but yeah, not for me at this stage. Next up, we have Sam De Koning. He did play as Geelong's number one ruck in this game, but only scored the 59. Now, Essendon is a tough matchup for rucks. We saw that last year. So that may lead to no cause for concern. But with Stanley still in the mix, he didn't play. He played in the VFL beforehand. It
Mm.
is hard to justify picking him. He had 81% time on ground, so was solid there. And I'm just going to quickly grab his ruck contest, sorry, just so that you can see, and took actually exactly 50% of the ruck contests for the
Oh,
game,
wow.
with Blixarves and Neil, the other two, taking them. So for me, it's a no. It's a avoid. I want to say I'm going to go that
Avoid.
far.
Oh,
I just don't
okay.
like it. I don't like it.
Yep. Well,
I can see the benefit of him as the number one ruck, but I just don't know whether it's going to justify picking him.
yep. No, that's totally understandable. I would say a pick with caution. He's still
Yeah.
slightly in the mix for me, but just purely based upon his price point and being a defender as well. But yeah, there's too many question marks over him. And as you mentioned there, sharing the ruck is never a good thing at any team, but especially when you're being coached by Chris Scott. So for me, I would say pick with caution, but yeah, very close to avoid, I think, because he does seem like a bit of a trap.
Mm, agreed.
Um, let's move on to the next player, and it is Connor O'Sullivan. Only played a half after featuring in the VFL, so there's not really much to take from his 17-point score. He is a wait and see for the round one selection. Eight disposals, as I said, 40% time on ground, very limited. So really hard to assess him off the basis of this. So for me at the moment, I would say avoid because there are other better options out there.
Yeah, great. I think all eight disposals were handballs, so that's why he
Oh,
was
wow.
down at just 17%. 17 points, sorry. Agree, avoid. If he's named, he's maybe a consider just because
Mm,
we have so
bump him
few,
up.
so few rookie options in defense. But yeah, I don't really see a world in which I'm picking him because I don't think it's a solid pick at this stage.
Yep, agreed.
Next up, we've got Mitch Nevitt, one of the best rookie priced options coming out of this game. Played midfield, attended 52% CBA, scored 70. The only real concern could be the players who were missing. Bailey Smith, for instance, Cam Guthrie. I don't really think he's going to come in and play midfield. Something to keep in mind, but I think we've had some really strong words from Chris Scott about seeing Mitch Nevitt in the midfield and wanting to build it with him there. I'll build the sort of midfield this year out with him playing in that role. So I think I'm happy to pick him. Had the 22 disposals, laid 2 tackles, and 77% time on ground. He is a lock, as close to a he's a lock as long as his name is a lock.
So you're saying now you've melted down that key that you had in the
Yeah,
lock, or
it's
is it
look
still in there?
the key's still in the lock, but
Okay.
it's locked, it's closed, but I just haven't taken it out yet.
Well, I said in a previous episode that I've already melted down my key. I am that confident on Nevitt, so he is a lock and load for me. So very, very bullish on him. Moving on to the Essendon side of the field. And we have first up Nick Martin. So he top scored for the Dons with 108, but his wing slash half forward role means his scoring could be up and down. Definitely not expecting him to return to defence. So pick at your own risk. Liam, you probably echo this sentiment here. 22 disposals, 11 marks, 2 goals, 83% time on ground. And yeah, just with that, the juicy role that he had in defence was such a good thing, despite the fact that it was brought down by his disposal efficiency at various stages. But off the back of that, I don't have any confidence in picking him. So for me, he is an avoid.
Yeah, agreed. Don't. I think I'm gonna actually say for pretty much any Dons primo, you pretty much have to avoid them until after round four because
Yep.
they're gonna have one less score than every other team basically. Um, other than the Suns with the round four bye. So yeah, just consider that. But yeah, he's probably an avoid for me. I can't really see a world in which we're picking him as a. He's not just going to be a defender, so he's not going to have the consistent scoring pattern. I don't think. Next guy is Jordan Ridley. He looked really good coming in with a return of 104 points, 20 disposals, and 5 kick-ins. Main worry, obviously, with him is his injury history. But if he does stay fit, I think he's a strong pick. Sorry, playing as that third tall defender with Reed and Mackay, taking the top two defenders. So he had the 20 disposal, 7 marks, took 5 kick-ins, and went at 90% for just 69% time on ground. So for me, I'd say he's a consider. Sorry, he's an avoid until round four,
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
but I'd consider him after that as an
In
upgrade option.
context, obviously
Yes,
referencing there the change in the fixture for Essendon and
yes,
Cyclone Alfred, is it? Is it Alfred?
yes.
Yes,
Alfred, yes, yeah,
the butler for Bruce Wayne, Batman.
yes, that's
That's
it.
always what I think of when I hear of it. But yeah, for me, I am very similar to that. Yeah, he's a void for the time being. And yeah, I mean, burnt so many times by his injury history as well. I'm a little bit cautious with that as well. So yeah, I am an
I'm
avoid.
ready to be hurt
Uh,
again.
I was waiting for you to chime in there,
Every
Liam.
time. He's the only player that will never end up on my never again list, despite the fact that he burns me every time.
Oh, you still have that love-hate relationship with him. It's
Oh,
always a joy to see it. It provides with such humor. Let's move on to the next guy in Jackson Pryor. So he took over Jake Kelly's role and scored 69 ding ding from 13 touches and seems to have job security. So really just watch for the team sheets now to make sure that he is selected. 13 disposals, 11 of those which were kicks, which is always a good thing. 7 marks, 78% time on ground, and 77% disposal efficiency. He's actually, I must admit, not in my team at the moment, but he is a consider, and I will be waiting to see if he is selected. But Liam, I don't know, can you just quick fire, provide a little bit of a snapshot? Do you think he will be selected first and foremost, and do you think he will be able to keep his spot in the team?
yes, to both of those.
Yep,
I
love it.
personally think so. I can't see why we would have picked him up to play that role. I know
Yep.
some people think that he's like Mason Redmond didn't play this game, so just keep that in mind. Um, so there's that spot that has to be filled, but I think there's other players that'll make way for him as opposed to what's his name? Jackson Pryor. Um, I think he's probably like the 22 to 25th player kind of thing. So there's probably that little bit of teetering on the edge. But I think he fills a role that we don't necessarily have many players doing that. So I think he's safe. So he's in my team currently. I wouldn't say he's a lock, but he's a consider. but a strongly
Love it.
consider, I would say.
Oh, okay, done. You're influencing me, Liam, so I love this.
Just because we have no defensive rookies, just because if
Mm,
purely for the price, if it wasn't for that, if we had
spot
other
on.
defensive rookies, I'd say like I wouldn't really look at him, I don't think.
Slim pickings. Next up, we do have Liam,
Oh
Zach
yeah,
Reed.
sorry, it is Zach Reed. Role was solid, taking 6 marks, 3 kick-ins for a score of 73. Only caveat was that Redmond wasn't playing, so just keep that in mind in terms of his kick-ins. But he'll be best 22 guaranteed. His biggest issue is going to be his uh not his job security, but his injury history in terms of that, like him not playing because he's injured. But I think scoring potential as well as a key position defender, not great, but I think he should score well enough. Taking those marks and potentially taking some kick-ins with strong disposal efficiency. So 18 disposals, 6 marks, 91% time on ground, and 89% disposal efficiency for 73. He's a lock as a defensive rookie.
I totally agree there on all counts, a lock and load. Next up, we have Zach Merritt put it in H. He's back for another season, and don't we love it? Didn't really see much midfield time and finished with just 78, but we know what we're going to get with good old put it in H. We were looking at him as an upgraded option, but with so many premium mids dropping like flies, he's at least worth considering. 21 disposals, 3 tackles, 77% time on ground, and 71% disposal efficiency. I will admit, Liam, I don't really like many Essendon players, but I will admit that Zach Merritt is a player that I really, really do enjoy watching and wish I
Mm.
had at my club. He's very, very consistent and he's always a joy to select in Supercoach. So for me, I would say he's a consider, but in context, as you said about the
Mm.
fixture change, makes it a little bit hard to consider him in your starting team. He's definitely an upgrade, I think, upgrade target at some stage during the year. I do anticipate him being a top 8 scorer in the midfield. So I would say consider. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to say with the fixture changes, but I do love him.
It's hard to say because I think sometimes we overstate the importance of. I think we overstate it because it is just a best 18 round. So it's not
True.
the end of the world. Like you're going to have so much cover for that round that it doesn't really make a difference.
Mm.
But yeah, he's a consider for me, but I think a lock for the end of the season. You
Yep.
should have him by the end
100%.
of the season, please. Um,
Please.
if you enjoy Supercoach.
Yeah, do
Also,
yourself a favor.
just to note that these were written before the news came out. The news only came out just before.
Mm.
So yeah, kind of reacting to it slightly
Yep.
with it. So just bear that in mind. Anyway, next up we have Dylan Shield. Had a decent roll off halfback. I actually didn't mind it, but 62 points from
Mm.
26 disposals isn't great. Disposal efficiency of 69% is a concern. And there are plenty of other better options at his price point, especially I think it's about 400k in the midfield, and I think there's a number of players at that price point that will have better returns. So the 26 disposals, 7 marks, 3 tackles at 69 and 69% disposal efficiency, 81% time on ground. He is an avoid for me.
Yep, totally agree. Avoid disposal efficiency is always his Achilles heel, and likewise as well, his durability as well has sort
Yeah.
of cropped up in recent times. So yeah, a definite avoid and looks like a big, big trap. Moving on to Elijah Satis, and he is a lock dominator of the CBA, 76% and racked up 31 disposals for 90 points. We'd like to see more tackles though, but he'll make plenty of cash, no doubt. 31 disposals, 2 marks, 1 tackle, 78% time on ground and 71% disposal efficiency. So he's flashed, the scoring output that we'd love to see in season, and I expect that to continue. So he is a lock, Liam.
That's it. Lock, 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 lock.
Yep, melt
Lock
down
him
that
away.
key.
Yeah. Key's been melted and thrown away. Uh,
Into the ocean.
yeah.
That's the saying, isn't it? You're going to throw him into the ocean,
Yeah, that's it.
swimming with the fish, sleeping with the fishes.
Oh. Next up, it's my boy Isaac Kako.
Ooh.
I don't know, is it Kako or they kept calling him something else? I think they were calling him like Kako
Oh, really?
on the thing.
Is
I
it
was
like?
like,
Is it
surely
like?
it's Kako.
It's Kako. Do they think he's like a cacao bean?
I don't know. I was like, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm gonna call him Cacao from now on. He's the bean, Mr. Bean.
Oh, loved him in this game. Kicked
Yeah,
4 goals, should have been 5, except for bloody Draper. And scored
hog.
97. Small forwards, as we know, can be up and down, but he has played himself into plenty of teams with that performance, I'd expect. 14 disposals, 4 goals, 2 tackles, 86% time on ground. what I liked was that he was also making his way up the ground, so it wasn't just a really stay-at-home
Mm,
small forward role. Whether that continues, I don't know, but I think he'll score well enough, and I think he might be a slow burn as a small forward, but I think his job security is so strong that it'll be fine. It'll work out.
yep, we get one of these every season, I
Um,
think, where it's a bit of a slow burn
yeah,
and they still make cash. So,
yeah.
can
So
afford to do it.
he is a consider for me.
Yep, I would totally agree there. I thought you were going to say lock, but I
He's like a
agree.
strongly consider just because I think his job security is so strong.
Yep. He's probably, yeah, you're totally right. He's probably one of the rookies out there, especially in the forward line, that have
Yeah.
a really good job security behind him. So I totally agree on all counts there. Moving on to the next game, it is Richmond up against the Pies, and
Mm.
this man is a burn man historically. Jaden Short, just saying his name brings back a flood of memories and PTSD, but must be said that he looks solid. And I always said it before in the preseason, and he has tricked us so many times in the past.
Being
But
sucked in.
is he back to that old role? And I know we've asked this question before, that old role of being the key defensive distributor, taking kick-ins. So the lack of defensive rookies does mean that we might have to take him, but is he going to burn us again? 170 scored, 25 disposals, two kick-ins, six marks, 84% disposal efficiency. The one thing I love now is there's holes across the field for Richmond, and there's reasons now to select him based upon role, and he's kind of required to become that distributor once again because Rioli is no longer there. Rioli was that man that was always the rebounder, took over that role from Jaden Short, and it looks like it's been gifted back to him. So on the basis of that, I will admit he's actually in my team at the moment. I've
He's
I've
in my
squeezed
team.
him in. There we go.
He's in my team. I
So
think we have to go
I'm
so
glad he's not
deep in the
alone.
defense that I think we need to go so deep in defense that we need to find some value options, and that's what he presents as. Not necessarily when I say value, I just mean in the sense that he's cheap. He's
Yeah.
cheap and should be able to pump out a decent enough score. I think the other thing that's positive for me was that today or recently, Uze said that they're going to have to they want to play more controlled in the backline, a bit slower, which
Mm,
means that there might be a bit more,
switching.
yes, a little bit more possession, a little bit of a
Yeah.
opportunity for Short to, yeah, just increase those disposals and those possessions, which should help his scoring as well. Um, so for me, he is consider strongly. I'm not going to say a lock because
Ooh.
Birdman.
I was waiting for you to say pick with
I'm ready to be
caution.
sucked in, 100%. I'm ready
Yeah.
to be sucked in.
I've been upgraded from a pick with caution to consider. And it's funny, I don't know if you've seen his headshot just quickly on the Richmond website. Check it out. But he's got this look on his face like a bit of a half smile and like raised eyebrows. As if he knows like I'm about to burn you and like he's being judged by every super coach out there that has owned him in the past. Because you know what, Jaden? We are
That's
judging you.
he
Come on,
does.
I'll flash it up on screen for those people tuning into to YouTube for a bit of
Oh,
a laugh. But people tuning into the audio podcast, check it out
yeah,
because
it
it looks as
is.
though
It does.
that's
It's
what's running through
accurate.
his head.
It's
But
accurate.
I will say he's been upgraded from a pick with caution to consider on the basis of no longer having Rioli there, and he should
Yes.
get the role under this coach. If it was under the old coach, maybe not. But I
Yeah.
reckon Uze is a little bit more open-minded, as you mentioned there, with regards to the game style. So let's move on to the next one, Liam. Who do we have?
It is Luke Trainer. Now, he only played the second half, which does suggest he may not be best 22. Heard his scoring, obviously. His points per minute, though, was around 0.81, which is fine, but job security is obviously the concern. He's one to monitor, but at this stage looks unlikely to be a round one starter. He scored 39, 12 disposals at 92% disposal efficiency. So at this stage, for me, he's probably an avoid. Um, I might consider only because I'm not really putting him into my side because I don't think he's going to be a round one starter.
Yep. Yeah, he's an avoid for me at this stage, just because I mean, key position player. I know he was an interceptor in his draft year, and that's a big strength of his. But yeah, he's had concussion issues across the journey as well, which kind of gives me a little bit of heebie-jeebies.
Yeah,
And they may even manage him. I don't know, but it's good to see that they're actually giving him a bit of a crack in the preseason. But for now, I will be avoiding him.
yeah, likewise.
Let's move on to Jacob Blight. So he scored 68, which is fine, but at his price point, he needs to score well to generate cash. He should have decent job security, but he's more of a fullback rookie option, I think. Among the 68 points, he had 12 disposals, 7 marks, 83% disposal efficiency, and points per minute was only 0.60, which is okay, but nothing out of this world. For me, he is, I mean, could he be a pick with caution? No, I reckon on the basis of his price point, I would say avoid.
Yeah, his price point's the biggest concern for me. If he was I don't know how much cheaper, but if he was cheaper, I'd probably
Yeah.
start considering him. It's just a
Like it's
bit too high.
246.4 at the moment, so a
Yeah, and
bit
scoring
awkward.
68's not enough. If he was
No.
scoring, yeah, no, not for me, not for me. He's an avoid, I'm gonna say at this
Yep.
stage, for me. Next up, we have Toby Nankervis, and this was classic Nank. Big presence around the ground, winning hitouts, 28 of them, laying 5 tackles, picking up 22 touches. I think he also, I didn't see it, but from what I've heard, he took Dacos out in the background at one stage, like just classic Nank. Low
Oh
ownership
God.
makes him a pot. You know what? I need to pick him just for that. Um, Not that I mean, just I don't know. I just love it. I just love that.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
just
you did
Nank.
own him in the past. You owned him, was it last year or
Oh,
the year
I love
before?
him. I reckon he's the best. Yeah, he's a
Except when he's playing your team. Yeah,
yeah.
I
That's it.
despise him.
And he's dropping knees into players,
Yeah,
but,
exactly. Just deliberately
throwing
goes into the right
elbows.
contest. Yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, low ownership makes him a pod. But I think we know what we're gonna get. Like the
Mm,
131. It's what he like. He just pops out 100 scores every year. So you know he's going to be the main ruckman. You know he's got that, the scoring potential really, and he's got the job security. Bit older though, so that's the biggest concern with him. I don't think I'm picking him, but if you're looking for a pod, Nank could be a good one. 131 was his score, 63% ruck contest, 22 disposals, 4 marks, 5 tackles, and 28 hitouts. Is a lock.
it's a lock, is he? He's a lock for you. I don't know about that. I
No,
would
no, I
say
would say he's not even a consider, really. He's probably an avoid.
I would say pick with caution because
Pick with caution. Sorry, yes, that's
could get
that's the
injured.
right one. Yeah.
He could more than likely elbow someone in the face, um, and he could drop knees into people. Every single season there's something that happens. I don't know if it's a
Oh,
year older and
just a
he
wiser.
loses. Yeah, wiser. Or I was going to say he
Or is he
loses
more
a year's.
grumpy?
Yeah, loses a year's worth of patience every single time he ages a year. I don't know what it is, but yeah, he's an interesting player. He's entertaining
No,
to watch,
I
but
would say he's a yeah, no, don't pick
no,
him. But
don't pick him.
if you really want a pod, I don't hate it. I don't
Yeah.
hate it.
Okay. Well, okay. We'll go with that. Let's move on to Harry Perryman. Big score with a goal and
Mm,
10 tackles. His presence in the midfield should help Dacos, but he's one to assess when full squads are back. Supercoach score 122, 20 disposals, 10 tackles, 1 goal, 85% disposal efficiency and 65% CBAs, which is third in line for the mids. I do expect him to play a majority of time in midfield. He's been spoken about when they recruited him to the fact that they were going to play him in the engine room, which is good to see. He's more so historically been like that negator anyway. So the fact he's
mm,
able to continue that on with the tackling prowess is a really good thing, I think. He's probably not going to be a massive accumulator of the footy. 20 disposals is okay, but the fact he was able to score 122 off the back of that is a really, really good sign. Sort of points per minute type scenario, or points per possession, you probably call it, is really good. So off the back of that, for me, he's actually in my team. He's been in my team for a little while now. I've upgraded him from a consider to a lock for me, just because I am
ooh,
confident that he will maintain that role in the engine room for the Pies. But Liam, you feel different?
I don't know. I at his price point, because what is he exactly? I can't remember, but I always just think if you add, like I think of,
417.5.
yeah, so if you're adding 150 onto him, he's getting up past that 560 mark. He's probably a keeper. You're not using him as a stepping stone. I don't hate it because I think we need to look at value options in the defense, but I just don't have him yet. It's probably between him,
Mm,
Perryman, and Short for me. They're vying for the same spot at this
yep.
stage. I think if I see him in this round zero game and see him go really well, maybe he makes his way in. I've also got Roberts in my side at this stage. So depending on how those two kind of fare, it might be a spot between the three.
Yep. What I will say is just looking at the CBAs for the practice official practice game, still side bottom, 77% CBAs, which is quite interesting. I think
Yeah,
that's a
that's
little bit too
high.
inflated. Um, Perryman, as we said, 65%. Pendles with 58%, which is kind of on par. Daniel McStay, obviously in the ruck there, 26%. Edward Allen, he's probably the unknown as well. They want to try and
Yeah.
cycle through these young guys because they haven't got many. 19%. And Bo McCreary as well, which will probably pinch hit anyway. But Jordan De Goey obviously missing. Tom Mitchell as well. We don't know when he's going to be returning. That's the other thing as well. And I think he's kind of being put out to pasture, to put it nicely. So I think there is an opportunity there
Oh, there's a
for
spot. Yeah.
Perryman, I think. Probably
Yeah.
maybe not to the extent every single week of 65%, but I think with his role as more of a negating mid, I think and points per minute, we're 1.17 as well, which is pretty good for that game.
Yeah.
So um, I am, yeah, I'm gonna say a lock for me, but consider is probably a more sensible approach.
He's a consider for me. Not in a, I wouldn't say he's a, what is that, consider with caution or whatever it is.
Yep,
He's definitely a consider. He's probably a strongly consider. He's just not in my side at the minute, is where I would go with that.
makes sense.
Next up, we have Dan Houston. Now, he looks solid. Obviously, has that suspension, so he's not going to be available in round zero. So we don't get to have another look at how he fits into the Pies backline. But as far as I think I did the maths right, he should be back for round one. Um, so he's definitely worth considering because he's not going to be missing a score basically. But there's probably safer picks in defence this year. Scored the 105, 22 disposals, one goal, seven marks, and the one kick in. So yeah, for me, he's probably a pick with caution to consider. Like it sort of spans those two. I don't think there's many people looking at him at this stage. So he ends up being a bit of a pod, but I don't know his actual ownership.
Yeah,
Let
we'll
me have a
also
quick
look at
look
that
at that.
up. I will say he's probably, yeah, a pick with caution. I mean, yeah, I would like to see him play the round zero game, but we probably
Yeah.
know what role he's going to have anyway. So it's much for muchness. Um, yeah, he's the sort of player that I had last year, which was he was awfully frustrating, and I chose him against
Mm.
my own logic and worries that I had about him having too much of fluctuating standard deviation. Really, he has those big scores, then he has those low scores, and there's sort of few and far in between. He may be a top six defender, yes, but yeah, I don't know about starting him in my team. So for me, I would say a pick with caution, sort of pushing towards a consider, because I think there's
Yeah.
better options out there, more better value options, I should say.
Yeah. Agreed. I think he sort of spans those two.
Perfect. Let's move on to Nikki Dacos. So, put it lightly, absolute jet, low time on ground, and still put up 153. His time on ground was 59%. And with so many midfield premiums falling over, he's hard to ignore now. The only real question is whether Bedford locks onto him in round zero. 32 disposals and 81% disposal efficiency. And it's something that we've spoken about across the journey of the preseason so far, like the early fixture for the Pies, especially considering the fact that they do face the Giants in round zero. Mind you, as well, I mean, it might work in his favour because of the fact that they've lost some quality midfielders in the likes of Tom Green, especially. But does it mean now that Bedford plays less of a negating role and is
Mm.
required to play more of an attacking role because if they've lost a Tom Green or who replaces Tom Green? I'd love to see their lineup, but we get a free look virtually in short, Nicky Dacos. See how he goes. If he gets locked down, if he gets restricted to a low score, it means that in all likelihood his price will plummet. Depending, of course, how he performs across the next two games after that. But it's something to consider because we could get him at a bit of a discount if we don't start him in our team. And could be virtually our first upgrade. So for me, I think he's kind of been pushed towards more of a consider slash lock based upon the fact that we've lost the likes of Butters and Bont and everything. However, I still think there are other value options out there that could take the place of Dacos. But I think what you get from Dacos is an absolute gun. So we know that as well.
Yeah. I think he's a lock.
Sticking with
I
it?
think he's a lock. I think he's a lock. If Bedford tags him and I don't know, restricts him to 50,
Yep.
like you almost can't pick him because he's going to be so much cheaper.
Yeah.
Um, that's the only thing that I would consider with Dacos. And also if Bedford can tag him, he's got a few games in a row or in the first start of the season where taggers could be an issue. So it might be a case of you need to hold off and wait and get him out, later in the season. But I don't have an issue with starting him. I think if you're
Yep.
starting him, that's fine. But yeah, I'd just be watching. I don't think there's any question about his role. It's about how he's impacted by roles on the other team.
Yeah,
Is
exactly. And
probably the
it's off the
biggest
back of
question.
round zero. Yep.
Yeah,
That'll dictate whether or not you select him in round one or
yeah,
you fade him. Yep, totally
yeah.
agree. So it's probably a lock with the key in it, Liam, to use your analogy.
And it's not quite blocked. It's
Okay.
the
It's still like it's
keys.
hanging
Yeah, it's
open, the
still
keys in
open.
it.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, yep.
Yeah,
And the
you haven't
keys in it.
fastened it yet.
Yep,
Yep. That's two
that's
steps
it.
removed from locking it. Who else do we have, Liam, from the
We
Pies?
have Ed Allen from the Pies. Had low time on ground, coming on only after halftime. So check whether he's going to be in round zero, round one calculations. He's in the squad at this stage, at the time of recording. But it's the extended squad, so he's on the bench. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Um, so at this stage might be a downgrade option later in the season, but doesn't look like he's going to be someone to start. Had a score of 30, low time on ground, 34%, 74, sorry, 0.74 points per minute, and 11 disposals. So for me, he's a void, I want to say.
Yep. Yeah, I think he hasn't really come to calculations for me. So technically, I'd
Yeah,
have to say avoid as well. But
pick
yeah,
with
would be a
caution.
very nice.
Yeah,
Yep, pick with caution. Yeah, because
those
there's a
two.
few question
Yeah.
marks. Yep, agreed. Let's move on to Josh Dacos, and he has a new halfback role, which he did look great in and was involved in some kick-ins as well. The challenge is fitting him in as a mid in Supercoach, but when he picks up DPP, he'll be a sneaky pickup and a decent pod early on. Scored the 120, 27 disposals, one kick-in, one goal as well, and five tackles. But yeah, for me, at this stage, he will be an avoid, I think. Pick with caution, maybe at best, but no, I think he's too
Mm.
much of a pod to really justify him because if it doesn't pay off, it's going to hurt you. And I think there are better options out there.
Yep. So currently sitting in 2.6% of teams, so very pod like. They're avoid for me 482. I think there's better options, but will be interesting to see when he gets DPP whether he looks like a top 6 to 8 defender, and whether we have to consider him later on in the season.
Perfect.
All right, let's move on to the next game. Hawks up against the Dogs. And first up, we have James Sicily. And Dog was solid, but did float forward at times, which is a concern given Hawthorn's lack of tall forwards. If he does stay as that third tall defender, we can expect plenty of inset marks and plenty of Supercoach points. But if he does swing forward, that scoring consistency might disappear. So keep a watch on him. I think there's too many question marks at his price point.
Mm.
Did only score the 88, did go forward at the end of the game for the Hawks as well. I think he went forward at the end of the first quarter and then for a big chunk at the end of the last quarter, trying to sort of, I think, give them an option to, sort of win the game, I guess. He had the 24 disposals, 7 marks, 6 tackles, and 2 kick-ins. For me, he's a pick with caution, I'd say. I like the role if he's playing as a defender, but just the potential of him being thrown forward is a big concern for me.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. That's a big question mark that I've had on him all through the preseason. And yeah, considering that, he is a pick with caution. Moving on to Will Day, and his hybrid mid forward role wasn't really great for scoring, and a 60% disposal efficiency really didn't help. We get another look in the opening round, but right now he is hard to pick. 20 disposals, 6 tackles, and 60% disposal efficiency, as I mentioned. He was in my first iteration of my team, but slowly made his way out of it because there are other players around about that price point that I do prefer a bit more. One being Chera. So for me,
Mhm.
Will Day, he is a consider maybe at best, maybe a pick with caution. I do like him. He's scoring, but yeah, that role isn't really conducive for scoring compared to if he is a pure mid. So maybe a pick with caution, veering on a consider, but yeah, not really for me.
He hasn't been in consideration for me. I don't want to go as far as saying he's an avoid, but I'd say pick with caution. But really towards the back end, I don't think with that hybrid role, I don't like it. Playing forward, he's not going to score as well.
Mm.
Um, That's my biggest concern. Yeah, that's it.
Yep, I agree.
Next up, we have Duke Nukem, Jai Nukem, obviously. Just 46% CBAs and 60% time on ground. I assume that's not really an issue. I think it's just sort of managing him in the preseason. But for now, I think he remains a bit of a risky pick. I know others are, I know there's some people that are big on him. I personally am not. Keep him on your watch list. I think he's sort of a boom or bust kind of player. Can score really well. Um, or could have those sort of not stinkers, but sort of sub
Mm,
80 games, which I don't think, depending on this, what sort of game you're playing, if you're playing for league, that can be good. If you're playing for, sorry, if you're playing for overall, it doesn't really matter because it's his average that you need. If you're playing for league, those low scores can hurt you. 20 disposals, four tackles, and 46% CBAs, which was the fourth for the mids. He's a pick with caution slash avoid for me.
yep, I haven't considered him at all. I would
Yeah.
say at best he's a pick with caution. I imagine he'd be a pod. So, yeah, no, I am not really for Duke. Moving on to Lloyd Meek, and he was the Hawks' clear number one ruck with 63% of the ruck contest. Points per minute were solid with 1.25, but he is going to be, is he going to be a high ceiling player? Probably not. Not a poor selection though. Lowest time on ground, 60%, probably being managed. Points per minute, as I said, 1.25, really, really solid. And obviously the main ruckman there taking the majority of ruck contests. So I mean, last year made sense because he was good value at one
Yeah.
point, but at his current price point, no, I think there's better value players out there and more reliable players, I should say. So for me, I would say at best to consider, but for me, pick with caution. Yeah, I just think there are better options more than anything, as opposed to being cautious about him as a selection.
Yeah, pick with caution for me. I just don't think it's value at that price. Average 103 last year, but yeah, at 557K, it's a lot of money.
Mm.
I think there's other options that are a bit more sure thing at that price point, or even slightly higher. More upside to them. Moving on, we've got Dylan Moore. If he kicks straight, this could be a very different conversation. Kicked three behinds, no goals. Still, role looked unchanged from last year, getting up the ground, but not enough midfield time um, for me to justify a selection. I mean, I know he does well without that midfield time, but I think it also leads to those scores where he, those games where he scores 62 and then he has those other games where he scores 100 and something because he's kicked a couple of goals. So for me, he's not a starter. I'd say a pick with caution if you're picking him, but probably closer to an avoid.
Yeah,
For a
I think
starter,
for a starter, he pales in comparison compared to Horn Francis and Rankin. He's probably the third sort of primo option,
yeah.
and considering that, yeah, you'd pick with caution. I think he could consider him, but I can't see him out averaging them, especially in the early days. Anyway, so you might get him at a cheaper price point or thereabouts. It'd be pretty consistent. I think we've spoken about him in our forwards analysis previously about that. So let's move on to the next player from the Dogs, and it is Joel Frazier, 27 touches and four kick-ins. But the big question is, what happens when Bailey Dale returns? His role looked fantastic, but we don't have enough data yet to say that he's a must-have. 108 was his SuperCoach score. 27 disposals, as I said, four kick-ins, 82% disposal efficiency. I will admit, in fantasy, I've got him in my team
Mm,
because obviously he's not as reliant upon how you dispose of it. But having said all that, obviously he disposed of it quite well in this game. He is very, very tantalizing. I will say that.
mm.
Oh, I just, I don't know. Could you, what is 370.4K? There are guys that, like, he's cheaper than Perryman, cheaper than Roberts. Um, I think he's got probably one too many question marks just around his role with other guys out,
Yeah,
compared to those guys like Roberts, who's got an established role with guys that are in the team, best 22, Perryman even as well. So for me, I would say, oh, I would say consider at best. I'm kind of torn because it's a pick with caution because it's question marks, but I
yeah.
can see him
It's
paying
that
off
lower
and
end.
being
Yeah,
yeah being value at that price point. So I'm
yeah.
kind of I hate to sit on the fence, but I will. and get a splint in his
No, I think
nails.
that's fair. I think that's fair because that's where I would put him. I'd say he's a pick with caution
Yep.
because of the question marks, but I think there's a lot of upside there. It's really
Yeah.
only the one question mark of how does he go with Dale in
Mm.
the team. So yeah, I think that's fair. I would have him about the same.
Yep.
Yep, but I do like him. I do like his role if Dale doesn't eat into those points. Um, Next up, we've got Luke Cleary. He's at a rookie-friendly price and played well, but his job security is shaky. If he is named for round one, might be an option, but don't be blah, blah, surprised if he is one of the first out when injuries start to clear up. Did score 89, 18 disposals, 4 tackles, 7 marks at 89% disposal efficiency. I was happy with how he played, but yeah, it's hard to pick him knowing the
Mm.
injuries, like the fact that he might be one of the first out.
Yep. And he's been that in the past. I think it was his
Mm,
first year in the system as well. I think a lot of people jumped on him, and then he was dropped after a
yeah.
couple of games. So that's burnt into my memory. And off the back of that, I would say no. I much prefer Fraser ahead of him. So Cleary,
Yes,
I would
definitely.
say an avoid.
Yeah, I'd go, yeah, avoid pick with caution. If he's named, yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is a tough one. Let's move on to Riley Sanders and 83% CBAs. They look great, but that was just a reminder here without Richards, Treloar, and Bont. And with Bont now under an injury cloud, and we don't know when he's going to return. I think they've said, what, 6 matches, 4, 5, 6 matches, who knows? Sanders could actually hold this role. One to watch it very, very closely. Scored a 79, 83% CBAs, 22 disposals, 8 tackles. I think even without these guys, I am confident that Sanders is going to be able to take that next step in his game. When I was on the podcast with Geordie from Supercoach Masters, I'll have to get it up because we haven't spoken about it on our podcast. But if you compare his stats with Clary Oliver, the Pink Sweaty Pig, his stats in his first year for both of these guys, they're eerily similar. And I think he can emulate Clary's jump up because I think he burst through the ceiling, ended up averaging 100 in his
Mm.
second season, which you can see Sanders doing potentially, especially off the back of this opportunity that's opened up off the back of these injuries. So he's in my team. Um, Having said that, is he a lock? A lot of people probably wouldn't say he's a lock. I would say off the back of the opportunity, he's veering towards the lock territory. But if you're going to be more sensible, he's probably a consider. So you call him probably more of a strongly consider, even though it's not a category. You know what? To hell with it. I'll throw caution to the wind, Liam. I'm going to say lock.
Whoa. Whoa, we're gonna badass over here.
Yeah, that's me.
Uh yeah, no, I agree. I don't have him in my side.
Oh, okay.
I don't have him in my side just because I'm struggling to fit him in at his price point.
No, that's fair. Yep.
Um, if I pick him, he's probably going to be in my flex, and it's sort of between 2 or 3 players, probably 3 or 4 players actually. Let's be real, for that role in flex. So it's just that hard. It's just the balancing point of finding the money to have him there and being happy with the rest of my side. Um, so I would say he's a consider because I do think there's so much upside with him now with Bont out.
Mm.
I think Richards has been ticked off as coming back in, and Treloar out still. There's just that opportunity for Sanders in that first 6 to 8 weeks.
Yep. No, I agree there.
And so I think so. One thing that is a positive is I think at the time we were saying, well, we can't look at his CBAs because
Oh,
Bont
yes.
out and all that. But I think now we can look at them to an extent,
Yeah, exactly. And
and
it's
feel a little
yeah,
bit more
it's
sure about it.
it makes a big difference now because that opportunity is there. It's opened up for him.
Yeah.
And sorry, just as I mentioned there, comparing Clary with Sanders. So Clary ended up his first season 70.3, and then second season 111.5. So jumped all the way up. And
Mm.
it's not loaded. DFS Australia isn't loading. I don't know what the go is there. Its database is running a little bit slow. It has been over the past few days, so I can't see the breakdown in stats for Sanders. But what was his 2024 average? It was 62.9 from There we go, 14. Thank
But
you,
some of
Lynn.
those would have been sub affected as well off memory.
Yep. And that's
Subbed
similar to
out
as
and probably
well.
some as playing as sub.
Yeah, well, Clary as well, 2016, he was managed for minutes as well, because I remember he was, and he spoke about it himself, that he wasn't the fittest. So there were
Yes.
many games there where he actually only had 65% game time, and probably pretty much all of his games in 2016, I reckon he would have, just quick sums, would have been around about 67% um, game time. So
Yeah.
was virtually a sub-affected player in his first season, so 70.3. And yeah, Sanders was very, very similar as well with his scoring output of 62.9. So I can see him jumping up to Clary, emulate him, and geez, imagine that, another pink sweaty pig. Incredible.
Oh, love it. Love it,
That would
love
be
it,
good.
love it.
Well, let's move on to the next guy, Tim English. So solid enough, but an 82-point return isn't really what you want for his price point. If you're picking a premium ruck, you want them pushing 110 plus. 85% ruck contest, so no doubting his number one ruck mantle. 14 disposals and 31 hitouts. Um, Burnt me in the past, and with that, pick with caution slash avoid. In fact, I haven't even considered him, so I would avoid him. You know what?
I
I'm gonna
wouldn't
be
go
harsh
that.
now.
All right, I love it. I love it.
No, I probably
Um,
wouldn't go that far. Pick with caution, I think.
Pick with caution for me.
Mm,
I don't. I think there's better options this year. I know it's kind of consensus picks, so everyone's it's not pods, but like it's so strongly that you could go an anti-pod by picking him and sort of bank on someone failing. But I just don't like it. I think he could throw out some not great scores. So he's an avoid, not an avoid, but he's a consider with pick with caution for me.
yep.
Next up, we've got Sam Davidson, and this kid played himself into a round one debut and straight into our F6 spots, if you ask me. 29 disposals, 617 meters gained were absolutely elite for him or for the game. Though, as a winger, his scoring will fluctuate. We saw that in the game. There was I think he was leading disposals in the first quarter or halfway through the second quarter, and then was on a dead wing for the rest of it and in the third quarter or something and didn't go much up in terms of scoring. But his price, I think he should be a lock. 81 score, Supercoach score, 29 disposals, one goal, 59% disposal efficiency, and 617 meters gained. So Supercoach gold
Gold.
for a forward, if you ask me. Lock him in.
Yep. Lock. Key has been melted down already. Thrown into the hot what's it called?
Cauldron.
Lava cauldron, like in Terminator 2 when Arnold's going down. He's got the thumb up. That's me. I'm saying that's me. I'm going down with Davidson.
That's
Um,
it.
So, yep, he's a lock. Let's move on to the next game. It is the Lions up against the Crows, and Dane Zorko first up. So he played the same seagull role that saw him dominate last year, racking up disposals and meters gained. He's still got it and will continue to be a strong scorer, especially without Coleman there. But double the buy is a big downside. But does he now have the double buy off the back of this
Oh,
cyclone?
I can't remember who's
Alfred,
playing, who's
who
not.
knows? I don't think he has it anymore because
No.
I think now they're playing round three. I'm so confused. Supercoach score 123, 8 kick-ins, 28 disposals, 4 marks, and 563 meters gained. For me, he's not quite a lock. He'd be a consider.
That's fair. That's fair. I think he's in a lot of sides now, so I feel like I'm not as worried
Mm.
about him as I was initially.
Yep.
He only came into my side based off his, form recently. He's in 10, only in 10% of sides actually.
Oh, really? Well,
So quite low. A lot of the teams I've seen he's in, so yeah, maybe it's just a bit of confirmation bias there. Um,
bit of Alfred.
yeah, a bit of Alfred, bit of a storm. But anyway, I have him as a strongly consider. I'm
Yep.
creating
Oh,
a new
okay.
title like you.
New category.
New category, that's it.
Yeah.
Next up we've got Levi Ashcroft. Ashcroft I think is a looking like a very solid pick for our starting sides. Saw enough CBAs to give us confidence in his scoring, and while his 57% disposal efficiency hurt his score, that's something he can improve on and see him increase his scoring. I think he's a pretty safe pick as a rookie option because he'll have decent job security, I would expect. So he is a lock for me. 80 score was 80, 23 disposals, 29% CBAs, two tackles, and 57% disposal efficiency. Lock him in.
Yep, lock
Lock.
and load. Luck. Next up is his brother, Will Ashcroft. So he played as the third string CBA mid, which raises some question marks. Will he score enough in this role to be a good mid-price stepping stone? Well, we get another look
We don't.
in round zero. We don't. Sorry, scrub that. See, we've written down these notes here, and it's like, well,
Can the
we're all like,
AFL, seriously, not even the AFL, can Cyclone Alfred please be more considerate of everyone?
exactly. No, yeah, exactly. And maybe the AFL by not having a stupid opening round. Maybe that'd be great. Round zero, it doesn't exist. It's like Resident Evil Zero. I laughed at that when they brought that out. I'm like, it's not a number. There's nothing that's a value before one. Stupid. Anyway, Will Ashcroft, 93. He scored 55% CBAs, 30 in line there, 24 disposals, two tackles. I do like him. He was in my initial team. I do think he can form part of that awesome foursome with what's it, Dunkley, Neil, and McCluggage. But then he's also got his brother to contend with. His brother. Hello, brother. I sound like I'm Cockney. Hello, brother. He's got his brother Levi. The V really helps there. But no, I think that for me, I would say Will is a consider.
Yes, I agree with that. He was in my starting side because I thought, but I think there's been some data that's come out as well around sort of needing to, like the issue with the third
Mm,
in line in terms of CBAs,
yep.
and particularly the fourth. So I think at his price, it's a bit of a risk. I think if you're a lower price, it probably doesn't matter as much because you don't need those high scores.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, so for me, he's probably a consider, but he's not in my side.
yep. I
Next
agree.
up, we got Lockie Neal, and this game was classic Neal. 30 disposals, solid mid-time, and a goal to top it all off. We know what we're getting. Almost got caught up, but
Hmm.
that's not the case. He only has the one by now.
Yep.
If he can
We knew
work,
that.
uh, he is a viable primo pick, but at a very high price. That's my biggest concern with him.
Yeah, true.
He's a consider for me, strongly consider. He's not in my side though, but I
Yep.
don't have an issue with anyone picking him, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Like, I'm not concerned about that. Scored the 112, 28 CBAs, one goal, one behind, 30 disposals, 445 meters gained. I mean, classic now.
Yeah. Classic Neil. Um, for me, the one thing is he's at that age now where
Yeah,
he's approaching 32 years of age. And I spoke about it in the mid primo episode where it's like I likened him to Pendlebury, who, like, as we know, like consistent 100 plus averages across the journey. But as soon as he hit 32, 33 years of age, it dipped to low to mid 90s. And I can see it's going to happen at some stage. Father Time's going to catch up to him. And I'm a
yeah.
little bit worried about that. But from what we saw in the preseason game, looked pretty good. So maybe we can trust him. So I don't know. For me, he's consider, especially considering now he doesn't have the two buys. So yeah, I wouldn't say he's an outright lock, as some people might say. Um, but he's a consider, nonetheless, a very strong consider. Next up, we do have Isaac Rankin. So Rankin is making it really hard to leave him out of our forward lines. He did lead Adelaide's midfield CBAs at 68% while still pushing forward and kicking a goal. The big question is whether those midfield numbers stay that high. If they do, he's a top six forward and a strong F1/F2 pick. Scored the 90, 21 CBAs, leading midfielder, 18 disposals, one goal, nine marks as well. So getting around the ground and doing some work. Um, I would say consider. I still
Oh,
think,
no, that's fair.
yeah, I think he's kind of between a lock and a consider. For me, I see slight value, more value in Horn Francis compared to Rankin.
Yes, I agree.
Um, if I could fit two primos in my forward line, that would hands down be both Horn Francis and Rankin. There's no doubting that. So maybe he's a lock on the basis
I
of
think if we
choosing
didn't
between
have,
both. I don't know.
yeah, I think if we didn't have to go so deep in defense,
Yep.
he'd be a lock. But because we have to go so deep in defense, you can only really pick one forward primo. And because
Yep.
there's so much value, I think, in the
Value.
forward line as
Yep.
well, on top of that, you kind of want to fill those spots with players going to make cash,
Yeah.
or potentially become top 10 forwards for a fraction of that price. So I have no issue with calling him a consider. Um, I think it's easy. I think if you, I mean, I'd be almost comfortable flipping a coin between Horn Francis and Rankin for
Mm,
F1 spot because I think they're both probably going to be F1 and F2 by the end of the season.
yep.
But I agree, consider.
Yep.
Whereas I'd say Horn Francis is a lock.
Mm, yeah. And other people might have a different opinion, which is totally
Yeah,
fine. I think it's kind of splitting hairs, isn't it?
yeah,
Between
that's what I
these
mean.
two.
I think if you're flipping a coin, if you really don't know, I just feel like you could flip a coin. Like
Yeah.
I feel like it's. I feel like they're both. I don't think either are particular value, but I
Mm.
do think that Horn Francis probably has more stealing scores in him.
Yeah, that's the thing as well. And like, I mean, the way it's looking at the moment, if those CBAs continue for Rankin, he's going to get mid forward eligibility as well. And
Yeah,
it means that in season, it provides a little bit more flexibility if you wanted to trade a midfielder
yeah.
straight across to Rankin, or another forward like, stepping stone like a Bailey Smith or one of those guys. So it
Mhm.
does allow you a bit of flexibility. So totally agree there.
Yep. Next up, we've got Jordan Dawson. Did it all in this game 24 disposals, 2 goals, 9 tackles, and some midfield time as well. If he keeps splitting between the midfield and forward line, it's a bit of a concern, but he does look like he's doing consistently with his scoring. Scored the 111, 2 goals, one behind, 24 disposals, 7 marks, 9 tackles, and 16 CBAs, which was the third for the mids. Um, he's not really one I've been considering, so I feel like it's harsh to call him a pick with caution
Mm.
because I think we know what he can do, but I'm not sold on him. So it's kind of low consider, but consider with caution.
Yeah, I can see the appeal in him at 550.3K, that price
Yeah,
point. It looks as though he's back to scoring as well. I mean, it's only one game sample size, but pushing forward, kicking goals, all that sort of stuff, the tackling, which is a big feature of his game, I do like. But I think there's another guy that I prefer at a cheaper price point, albeit slightly, 21K in Rosie, who's got a
yeah,
better, I think, fixture, especially without competition and sharing the pie with an injured Butters. So that's really the only reason why I haven't chosen Dawson myself. But slight consideration, but yeah, I agree with you. Not really one that's going to blow me away. One to consider, but you could probably say proceed with caution with those people that had him last year and were burnt. So
mm,
I wouldn't hold it against you if you have him in that category. Let's move on to the next guy, James Peatling. So we need to see at least 50% CBA for Peatling to be a viable selection, and he got 42%. He's still underpriced due to sub-affected games last year, but he may not hit the levels that we did hope. If he gets more midfield time, he's still an option. Scored a 70 off 21 disposals, 13 CBAs, which was fourth string, and 52% disposal efficiency, which is quite low. So I think there is a little bit of upside there for him. For me, he's still in my team. Some people may have jumped off him, and I'm surprised that his ownership is lower than what it is at the moment. I think it was 13%. It might have been last check. Might be
yeah,
completely
it's
wrong.
11.5 now.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, he's dropped. Gee whiz. But I think there's enough of a correlation there that when he has greater opportunity, he can score, and he's like ceiling in that sense is sky high. So I'm picking him off the basis of that, and I do think he will get those CBAs. Again, hard to really make a really well-rounded assessment off the back of one game sample size. Um, Laird's already out of the midfield rotation, which is good. Uh, Sid Draper is yet to be injected into there full time. So I think there's enough room for him to move, despite the fact that there is guys like Berry and stuff that could still cramp his style. And the high rotation through the end and room as well, which is a little bit annoying. But he's in my team. Pete Ling, in short for me, is in my team locked. I'm not going to take him out because I've already decided, but he's probably still a consider. There are other guys there you could consider in his place, but for me, he's a lock. Liam, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. I'm just sorry, I'm just quickly getting up some stats.
Yeah, we spoke about him in the
We did, didn't we?
yeah
Okay,
the
cool. That's fine.
yeah the mid pricer episode, and we went through when he averaged 40% CBAs,
Yeah,
he pushed close to 90 point average, but when he stepped up to 50% CBAs, that jumped to 95.7. So I think it might have been a little bit of an off game as well on the back of like the disposal efficiency being quite low. Number of
I
other factors as
think
well, but
the thing that makes me feel comfortable with him though is that he's just pure value based off
Mm.
being the sub.
Yep.
Like his games last year where he's just undervalued. So he doesn't even have
Yeah.
to. He actually, if he goes back at his average when he wasn't playing as the sub, he's making enough cash for us. So I'm not that
100%.
worried about it. So to
He's
me,
not going to be
that
a keeper. So yeah, he's
no,
a
he's not a
stepping stone,
keeper.
make
He's a
cash. Yeah.
stepping stone 100%. So I'm not worried about the role necessarily because as long as he goes at what he did last year, he's going to make his
Mm.
cash. So
Yep.
that's where I've got comfort. And I think there's upside on top of that. So
100%.
he's a lock for me. I'm surprised by that, him being only in 11% of teams.
Mm.
I'm very comfortable with him on my side.
Yep. Yeah, he's definitely a lock for me. Like he's adjusted average here on DFS Australia, discounting those sub games and stuff, lifts from 65.5 average to an 89.4.
Yeah,
So already we're getting him in a discount on his starting price. And then you factor in, as you just outlined there, the fact that he's got that ceiling that he can reach off the back of increased opportunity and
yeah,
whatnot and everything else. So I
yeah.
do
So
like
he's
him.
a
He's a
lock.
lock. Yeah.
Agreed. Next up, we've got Sid Draper. Only played a half, but made an impact with the 14 disposals, two tackles. Points per minute of 1.27 is really good, but looks like he's going to be eased into AFL. Doubt he's named for round one, but if he is, I think he's a big sub risk, either being the sub or being subbed off. So I'd be cautious if you are picking him. 39% time on ground, 14 disposals, two tackles, 59 was his score. Um, he's an avoid, I'm going to say, for me at this stage.
Yep. Yeah, he was downgraded from select with caution to now being an avoid. Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree as well. Even if he is named in the starting team for the Crows, yeah, he could definitely be a sub. That is for sure. Moving on to where are we here? I've lost my way. GWS up against my mob in Carlton. And first up, we have James Leake. Leake, he played through the midfield through the engine room for the Giants, leading the team in CBAs with 19. And he was spoken about as filling Pete Ling's defensive mid role, which could be huge if he gets backline DPP. A rookie price player with mid clock. We'll take that every single day of the week. Scored 61, 18 disposals, four tackles, and as I said, those 19 CBAs, which was the most for the Giants. For me, he's in my side. Considering the, I guess, lack of rookie and value players in
yeah,
defence, he's a lock. It was a consider, but now he is a lock, and it looks like he's going to play early days for the Giants. Worth the risk? Yeah, I would say so. That's me
yeah, I
anyway.
agree. I agree. He's a lock for me as long as he's named. So he's a lock, but it's not the key hasn't been melted. Not quite yet.
Not quite yet.
Um, but yeah, I would pick him 100%. If he's
Yep.
named, I think we're going to need him. It's a bit of a
And we get the
risk,
free
but
look as well, round zero.
exactly.
So
He's been named in the side on the extended bench, but I assume he's going to be named.
yeah,
Next up, we've got Lockie Whitfield, and again, it was a classic game for Lockie Whitfield at halfback. Led the Giants for kick-ins, taking 50%, and racked up 28 disposals with strong meters gained. He's got a solid scoring base, but as always, durability is the big question mark with Lockie Whitfield. Scored 97 from eight kick-ins, 28 disposals, 512 meters gained, sorry, and 70% time on ground. He was in my side early, but he got shifted. I had to downgrade him
mm,
when we were looking like we were having no rookies. So,
yeah,
because I just couldn't justify having another player priced at a player priced at his price point. So
mm,
I will have him as consider.
yep. That is totally me. I had him in my team as well. He's still 13% owned. Um, I have pivoted slightly to Zorko, who's again
Yeah,
not even a lock in my team, but I do like Whitfield. He's an absolute gun when he is fit. As you mentioned there, that's a bit of a question mark, but yeah, he is a consider. Moving on to the next guy in Connor Stone. So Stone, he played in the back line, which is a new role for him and looked solid, but job security is still a concern. He used the ball well at 87% efficiency, but he needs a standout round zero performance to force his way into our teams, I think. Worth keeping an eye on, definitely. Scored a 62, 15 disposals, 87% disposal efficiency, very good, and 301 meters gained. Looks as though he's kind of relishing in this role. He played in this role in the VFL. They call it the VFL.
mm,
I think they do as well for the Giants.
yeah,
Um, And off the back of that is part of the reason why he is now being shifted into this role at senior level. So that's a good thing. The fact that they're showing him confidence early on in the preseason. But again, get that free look round zero, see how he performs, see how he fits into this new role in the defense, and assess from there. So for me, he's not quite a lock as yet. Off the back of that, is a consider on the verge of being a lock.
Consider for me. Simple as that.
Perfect.
I think there's enough value that we can look at other options
Mm,
other than him if we need to.
yep.
Next up is Finn Callahan. Looks well underpriced at an average of 82 if this form does continue.
Hey.
27 touches, 18 CBAs, and kicked a goal with just 4% ownership. Sneaky pod if his round zero output backs it up. Scored the 115, 27 disposals, had 18 CBAs, which was the second for the mids, and three tackles on top of that.
Yeah, I think he's going to step up his game. Kelly is forever injured. We've got Tom Green who's out injured, and I think now it's kind of full on his shoulders to step his game up, and he's kind of done that already. Natural progression, and I do like him as a pick. I would say a consider because he could be
Mm.
very, very nice value, priced around about 400K thereabouts. So yeah, for me. Yeah, consider 441.6K is his price point, only in 4% of teams as well, so a definite pod.
Yeah, and I think the positive thing as well is we're only really missing Tom Green from
Mm,
the midfield at the Giants, so we'll get a good look um at what the role is in round zero as well.
yeah,
Just considering factoring obviously that Tom Green is to come back, but it's not like you've got three midfielders that are out
yeah.
um or anything like that. Next up, we've got Adam Chera. Chera passed the eye test with flying colours and looks severely undervalued at his 83 average. Had 15 CBAs as the Blues' fourth string mid, but still found 21 touches, a massive goal, and solid metres gained as well. I think he's in the frame for some quick cash gen. 108 was his score, one goal, 21 disposals, 455 metres gained, and 15 CBAs for the match. So he's in my side just because I think he's really undervalued. If he can get back to that 2023 scoring ability, then I think
Mm,
he's going to make some quick cash and potentially even be a player you might be able to keep for sort of an M9
yeah.
position.
Yeah, 108.3 average back in 2023. And I think he can definitely recapture that. He's done it in the past, even averages prior to that. He was scoring in the 90s,
Yeah.
91.6, 90.1, and 90.2 averaging, dating back to 2020. So he's got those form line behind him. And that's all I needed to see was that eye test, which he did pass in this official preseason game. So for me, he is a lock. Great value. Next up, we have Ollie Hollands. And Hollands doesn't look like, he's kind of a so-so pick at the moment. I mean, he only took 6% of Carlton's kick-ins and he's awkwardly priced in the midfield as well, which goes against him. You can't select him as a defender. There are better value options both above and below his price range, I do think, considering he is only a midfielder. 79 was his score, 17 disposals, 77% disposal efficiency, and 329 meters gained and one kick in. So for me, he's not in my team. I would say it's hard. It's hard to classify him. I mean, if he was a defender midfielder, I would say consider. Because he's only a midfielder, I would say select with caution or pick with caution because
Mm,
he could end up being value for his price point. Yes, I do agree with that. But and he will no doubt get DPP status as well, come round six as a forward defender. But until then, he's just it's too hard to squeeze him in with all these other great value options. I think in the midfield, I just can't justify it. His disposal can let him down still. That's a big question mark over him. I know it all
mm,
too well as a Carlton supporter, and I do think that he will have those games very much like a Nick Martin last season, where his disposal efficiency will keep him back from hitting some really nice scores. So I will wait and see. Happy to trade him in season, but for me, he is a pick with caution.
yeah, agreed. His pick with caution almost verging on a avoid for me, just
Mm,
because I think that there are other options at that price point that I prefer. If if it wasn't for that, then I might be more likely to pick him. That's the only reason
yeah,
I probably have him as avoid. I don't think he's necessarily a terrible pick, but I do just think that there's probably more like in Hollands. I don't know what the price difference is, but Chera versus Hollands. Chera's 447. Hollands is Oh, 333. Okay, yeah. There's a fair price difference there. In my
Yeah,
head, they were closer. Um, yeah, okay. No, I changed my answer then. I think he's more of a consider with caution or whatever it was, pick with caution.
yeah.
Um,
Only 2% ownership as well, which is interesting. I thought it'd
mm,
be much higher than that. I thought people might be not fooled, but they might be kind of hinging upon the fact that he's got this new role, a distributor
yeah,
role. So I thought it might have been actually closer to 10%, but people
yeah,
have obviously jumped
likewise.
off. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, pick with caution for me. Next up, we've got Lucas Camporeale. Played on the wing, found plenty of the ball with 20 disposals. If he does clean up his disposal efficiency, which was around 50%, scoring should improve. Looks like a potential round one debutant. Definitely watch for team sheets, but job security long term is probably a bit of a question mark for him. For me, at this stage, he's a pick with caution.
Yep, 100%. I agree with that. Moving on to Tom DeConning, TDK, he dominated in 58% time on ground before sitting out the last quarter. He had 59% of Carlton's ruck contest and looked great, but we would have liked to have seen him up against Briggs rather than Keefe, obviously a lesser quality ruckman. He'll be Carlton's number one ruck for at least the first 6 weeks. We do know that now, which is prime R2 ruck position. If you are selecting someone like Cherry or someone a bit more expensive, or even a Gorn,
Mm,
he ended up scoring the 138. 58% time on ground, set at the last quarter, as I said, and 20 hitouts from those 59% ruck contests. For me, he is a lock. I think he's just like all factors considered, he is now having the number one ruck mantle. Pitnet's out injured. We do know that. We do know that, and also the fact that at his current price point, he's severely undervalued. So, with
mm.
that in mind, he is a lock for me.
46% ownerships, almost 47%. Um, Averaged 101.5 last year, but we saw, those big spike games that he could have. For me, he is a absolute lock. Let's move on to the next game, Suns versus Swans. It is first up, we got Matty Roberts, and he delivered exactly what I wanted to see, I have to say. He looked like
Mm,
key distributor out of the Sydney's backline, intercepting well and pushing along with transition play as well. Took three kick-ins, used the ball at 89% efficiency, and after his strong finish to 2024, he could be a solid high mid-priced defensive pick if we need to go deep. Watch him in round zero, but I think he did. I think there's enough justification to pick him. He is a lock for me. I'm
very
bullish on
good.
him.
Very good. I like to see you bullish, Liam. And I must say that since we recorded um, our episode on him in
Yes.
defence, I know you were very bullish on him, and I was kind of on the fence. I was probably more so like, yeah, I'm proceeding with caution still. I will say that's been upgraded to consider on the
Mm,
verge of lock because I wanted to see how he performed in this preseason game. And I think it was McInerney I outlined as that player
yes.
that kind of
Yep.
had a bit of correlate or anti-correlation in a sense. When McInerney went out in those games late in 2024, Roberts's average actually increased. And then when McInerney came back in, it cramped his style. But McInerney, I think, played more midfield and it looks as though he's out of any sort of impact on him. So Roberts has got free reign. He's virtually the new, you'd like to say, the new seagull potentially in
Mm,
defence there for the Swans, the new chip eater. So I liked what I saw. I love what I saw. He's in my side at the moment, and I would say he's still a consider because I mean you get a free look at him round zero. And
yeah.
then off the back of that, you can get another look. But yeah, he's on the verge of a lock for me.
He's a lock for me, but I mean, I'm gonna watch him in round zero and see. I
Yep.
feel like I can't go that far, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty bullish on him personally.
Love it.
I like what I saw last year, and I think he should be able to emulate that this year.
Perfect. Great value. Another
Yep,
guy with good value, we think, is Angus
great
Sheldrick.
value.
So had a solid midfield time with 13 CBAs and laid seven tackles, but his 46% disposal efficiency did hurt his score. The big question is whether his role holds with Heaney and Warner returning long term. Round zero will tell us more, but if he keeps this mid clock, he could make some quick cash. Scored the 100. 73% time on ground, as I said, 13 CBAs, 22 disposals, seven tackles. And if he lifted that 46% disposal efficiency up, geez, if he's scoring 100 with that, the sky's the limit for him. So really do like the look of him. He is in my team at the moment. Opportunity is a big thing for him without the fact that we've got Goulden and who's the other dude? Mills out of the
Yep.
team injured. So he is a lock for me.
Yep. Basically a lock for me as well. Um, Yeah, keep it simple. Ben Patton, next up, did enough to warrant selection if defensive rookies since defensive rookies are so scarce. Is making his debut on Friday in opening round, but he won't be a big scorer you wouldn't expect. If you start him, plant him on your bench. It's just sort of a lockdown small defender. Um, really. 61 was his score, 81% time on ground, 14 disposals at 80% disposal efficiency. Um, yeah, he is a consider for me at this stage. He's not in my side, but could be.
Yep. Yeah, he's one of those guys that I think we don't know how he's going to score longer term. I don't think with with him scoring historically at the Saints, it wasn't the best. So I can see there being a reason to have him on your bench off the basis of how he performs in round zero. But yeah, for me, yeah, I would say pick with caution, maybe consider.
Mm.
Yeah, it's kind of hard, but it's more so due to a lack of decent rookies in defense or lower price players. Let's move on to the next guy, and it is Riley Bice. So Bice, he came on after Goulding's injury and took 33% of Sydney's kick-ins, which helped build a solid floor. However, he doesn't look like a round one debutant. In fact, I don't think he's been
No,
named.
he
No.
hasn't been named in round zero.
So hopefully he will become a downgrade target later in the season. He scored 67, 58% time on ground, 14 disposals, 11 kicks, and 4 marks. So one to monitor later in the season, but obviously not one to pick. So he's an avoid, obviously.
Yep, likewise, avoid for me. Next up, we've got Noah Anderson, and he put up some big numbers with 35 disposals, 18 CBAs, proving he can score well at home, as usual. The real test will be whether he can replicate this form away from home. He's a tough start. I think you have to probably avoid him at this stage, just purely on the basis that he does have that round three or two bye. I can't remember which one it is. Sorry, guys.
Yep.
Um, but I think he's probably a strong upgrade target, and I think that gives you the opportunity to see how he does perform away from home. Um, I think there's upside to him. Scored the 124, 35 disposals, 18 CBAs, one goal, one behind. But yeah, it's what he does when he's at Metricon, or what is it now? People first, or whatever it is now. Um,
People helping people.
People helping people.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a big rap on him personally,
No.
from a Supercoach perspective.
No, I agree as well. I would say he's probably a proceed or pick with caution,
Yeah.
just because if he was able to perform away from people's first stadium, if it was football first stadium,
Humans first.
humans first, aliens first stadium, such a stupid name. Anyway, don't want to get caught up on that, but as we always do in the small details, but it is important as to where he plays. It needs to be football first. I'm not a rapping him really. So for me, he's a proceed with caution, I think.
Agreed.
Next up, we have Ben Jepson. He is Ben Jepson. Do, 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 do. So Jepson, I know as you roll your eyes, Liam, that is a Jetsons little gag there. So he didn't come on until the second quarter and only played 56% game time. He used the ball well, 86% disposal efficiency, which is good, but he doesn't seem best 22 at this stage. So it really is hard to pick him. Only scored the 24, 7 disposals, 86% disposal efficiency and 56% time on ground. So an avoid at this stage, but might be a very nice downgrade option later in the season.
Yep, agreed. Avoid for now. Let's move on to the next game. Saints up against the Power. First up, we've got Nasiah Wanganeen-Malira. Shaky game for Nas with his score impacted by turnovers. I think he had 5 of them for the game. Split time between defence and midfield, but his role will depend on Sinclair. Sinclair plays midfield. Nasiah could see more of the ball and could be a solid pick. I think if Sinclair comes back in and plays in defence, then it's going to hurt him quite a lot
Mm,
in terms of scoring. So he did score 76, had 20 disposals, 4 marks, 5 kick-ins, 5 CBAs, and 5 turnovers. So bit of a, I don't know, indifferent game from him, if I'm honest.
mm.
For me, he's a consider, but probably not as highly as some other players at this stage.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's a consider, but yeah, he looks good without Sinclair there. That's the thing, I think.
Yeah.
Um, it makes him look better than what he actually. I think he's a good player still, no disrespect, but I think it makes him
Yes,
look
yes,
better
yes,
in a
yes,
super
yeah.
coach sense.
The role, yeah.
Yeah, the role more than anything. And the one thing as well, if you look at stats by jaden.com.au, check out his good work. Have a look at the breakdown of his stats in 2024, and a bulk of those came through disposals. So very, very heavily reliant upon getting the ball in his hands. If he plays those games against opponents where the defense is starved of the pill, he's going to struggle to score. So that's the main thing that I took away from the stats breakdown. As an owner last year, I know that all too well. Can be a good scorer, but few and far between. So for me, I would say at most he's a consider, as opposed to a lock, which he may be seen as without Sinclair.
Hmm.
Um, Let's move on to the next play in Tubi Travalia. He came on in the third quarter, scored a decent enough rate due to his inclusion in CBAs, but seems to be down the pecking order and unlikely to be a round one debutant. Supercoach score only the 21, 28 disposed, 28% Tom on ground, seven disposals, 86% disposal efficiency, and six CBAs. For me at this stage, he's probably a proceed with caution. Might get the gig in round one. We don't know, but is it going to be long term? Yeah, all signs probably point to maybe even being a sub at various stages. So
Hmm.
for me at this stage, he's been downgraded to an avoid at this stage. Could be a proceed with caution, but it seems like it's a bit of a risk there. But could you take the risk with few rookies in defence? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. He's an avoid, I'd say, for me at this stage, but with so few defensive rookies, it's not the end of the world if you do pick him and he comes a dead rookie.
Yep.
Um, yeah, so he's an avoid slash pick with caution.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Next up, Liam O'Connell. I thought it was going to be you for
Yes.
a second then.
Yeah, I was going to pull on the jumper for the Saints.
Yeah, with
Uh,
one knee.
with one knee. Good. Yes, no, Liam O'Connell, good use of the ball, helped salvage his score with such a low disposal count. The Irish recruit for the Saints did his round one chances, no harm. Could be a handy D8 with the lack of defensive rookies. Scored 54, eight disposals, three marks, two tackles at 100% disposal efficiency.
Ooh.
Very nice from the Irish boy. For me, he's going to pick with caution. I think just not sure on his job security, to be perfectly
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Same sort of thing with Travalia as well.
Yeah.
Only difference being Travalia is a high draft pick and O'Connell's not. He's an Irishman. So luck of the Irish if that gets him in to round one. Yeah, good, but don't know how he's going to I guess stay in the team long term. Maybe yes,
Mm.
no, who knows. But yes, I agree. Proceed with caution. Next up, we have Jack Steele. So I didn't really light it up, but the midfield role was there, which is a pleasing thing. He's a tough pick at his price point, especially with the need to prioritize defense. A wait and see for now. 79, 22 disposals, five marks, four tackles, and 20 CBAs. Liam, what do you reckon? I'm going to say he's burnt us in the past. I'm going to say
Never pick him.
I'm
I'm
going to say
making a new
proceed with
category.
caution. Never,
I'm making a new
never pick him.
category. No.
No, no, categories
No,
just
no,
no. I'm going to say
no.
proceed with caution.
Yeah, I agree. I think the role was there. The
With
worry I
caution.
have with him is at his price point and what we like. I just don't think I think it's. I don't know how you pick him. I can't
Mm,
actually don't know how structurally you'd be able to pick him without missing someone that's more important. So for me,
mm.
he's a proceed with caution.
Yeah. Yeah, 585.2K. He's more expensive than Rosie. He's pushing up
Yeah,
towards Sarong territory in price, which is ridiculous.
yeah.
Um, so, yeah, I agree. Pick
Next
with
up,
caution.
yeah, proceed with caution. Next up, we've got Hugo Garcia. Disposal let him down and held his score back. He had the third most CBAs for the Saints behind McRae and Steele, which I mean is a positive. The role looks good. Good option potentially at his price point. Scored 71 from 18 disposals, three marks, three tackles, had 18 CBAs and went at 67% disposal efficiency. So for me, he is consider.
Mm, yeah, he's not in my team at the moment. I am
No,
considering
he's
him.
been flipping in and out for me.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a bit of an interesting one because he's getting squeezed out of my team at the moment. I just can't
Yes.
find a way to fit him in.
Yeah, that's it.
Um, but maybe I can. I could stump up the cash, but it means the expense of another player. So yeah, for me, he's a consider at the moment as well.
Agreed.
Next up, we do have Hugh Boxall. Looked solid again, but score was boosted by his 2 goals. Decent rookie option for a midfield with his CBAs and disposals. Scored an 83, 15 disposals, 62% time on ground, 6 CBAs, and of course, as I said, those 2 goals. For me, he is probably still a consider. I wouldn't say an outright lock.
Mhm.
We still obviously need to see him get selected in round one, but on the basis that he does, he's almost locked territory. Just on the basis of his, I guess, 113.5K price tag makes him juicier at the lower point there. Um, yeah, I'm just a little bit worried about his job security longer term. Maybe it's the Ross Lyon heebie-jeebies that I get, but um, I do like him. So in between consider and a lock for me. One of the better, I think, rookie options available.
Yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, he's a strongly considered, I'd almost say, as a rookie option.
Yep.
Um, yeah, simple as that. Let's move on to Harry Boyd, Supercoach score of 40, 10 disposals, 65 ruck contests, and 18 hitouts, obviously without Marshall playing. So played well enough to warrant selection at R3 at his price point. Marshall should return in round one, but with Max King injured, you'd expect that he should be able to continue playing and making some cash, though it might be a bit of a slow burn with that Supercoach score of just 40. So for me, he's basically a lock
Mm,
because at his price point of 99K, you're not really getting anything cheaper.
no.
So you might as well have him in R3. And if he makes some cash, he makes some cash. If he doesn't play, it becomes your loophole.
Yep.
I just don't think there's a downside to him.
You have summarized it perfectly. So he is a lock for me as well. Moving on to Jack McRae, scored a 117, 32 disposals, 5 tackles, 66% disposal efficiency, and 20 CBAs. Lock him in. Played well and suits us and killed the game plan. Back to playing the midfield role that we all know and love. Lock him into your forward line, melt the key, throw it into the sea. Poet didn't know it, and that's it. That's me. Do you like that?
Yeah,
I rhymed
I love
three
it.
times over,
I love it. I love it, love it,
like
love it.
Eminem.
Almost as much as Jack McRae, I love. I love that.
Almost.
Lock him in. Seriously, just if you don't have him, I actually not. I'm gonna have a quick look at his ownership because it should be
100%.
100%.
Yep. And if it's not, then there's something wrong. Seriously wrong.
Might help if I can spell his name.
65%.
Um, oh, you're kidding.
35% of the competition don't own him. What are you doing? They're going to waste a trade. Imagine wasting a trade on Jack McRae.
Seriously,
That's why they need to tune into us, Lamb.
can't
They would
believe
hear
it.
us. They would
So
hear
angry.
us bloody losing our minds over this. Anyway,
Anyway,
that's
let's
it.
move
Lock
on.
him in.
Let's move on to the other side of the ledger, to the power side, and let's look
Mm,
at Josh Sin to start off with. Had some kick-ins, played ahead of Dylan Williams, which is, I guess, good for his job security in that sense. But his scoring was held back by low time on ground. But his points per minute was solid at 1.4. 67 was his score, 14 disposals at 83%, 3 marks, and the 2 kick-ins. Here's a proceed with caution for me. A pick with
mm,
caution. I worry that he's not going to do well enough for him to make enough cash. He looks like he's got that role that should help him
mm.
score, but is being held back a little bit. Low time on ground was the biggest concern.
Yep. Yeah, that was the big takeaway, I think, out of all that. Points per minute was really good, as you mentioned, but I will admit he's in my team at the moment, but only because he's a placeholder. And I can't work out whether or not he stays in my team or someone else puts their
Mm.
hand up by me looking and doing a bit more research. I don't know, but I could potentially find a bit more cash to get, like batting a bit deeper in defense, as we've spoken about. I could go for maybe pushing short down there. That would make me bat really deep, but yeah, I don't know. For me, I think he's a proceed with caution. That's probably the best way to put it.
So I've currently got Roberts at D5.
Oh
So
wow,
I've
okay, so
gone, yeah,
deep.
so I've gone super deep because I'm too worried about the rookies.
Yep.
Um, that might change. I might look to shift it around.
Mm,
But yeah, that's where I'm at this stage.
yep. No, totally makes sense.
So
Uh,
yeah, he's not in consideration for me. Next up, Damon.
Yep, next up we have the Horn Francis. So it was one of the standouts for Port, no surprise. Strong midfield minutes and high disposal count make him a no-brainer selection. Looks locked in as an F1. Supercoach score 108 off 31 disposals, 7 marks, 2 tackles, 16 CBAs, and 1 behind. He's a lock and load. We've spoken about him in the past, and I just think he's got that plum midfield role. He's going to push forward, kick goals as well, which is a really, really good part of any midfielder's game, and it just elevates that super coach score to another level. He's going to go up to another level with his average. He's going to break 100 and potentially go as close to 105 plus, I think, 110 plus. He's going to be a superstar for Port. I love him. Liam is a lock for you.
Lock, lock, lock,
Lock and
lock.
load.
Hasn't shifted out of my side all preseason.
No.
That's it. Next up, we've got Connor Rosie. Put on an absolute clinic in this game, doing everything from tackling to hitting the scoreboard. With Butters missing the first, I think it's 6 weeks, expect him to be the
Mm.
main man in Port's midfield. Scored the 161, 39 disposals, 7 marks, 7 tackles, 19 CBAs and a goal. He's made his way into my side. He's currently my
Yep.
M2.
Yep. Same with me. M2 as well. Behind Sarong.
Yeah,
I'm just really looking at these value guys. There's so much value in 2025, I feel that it'd be silly not to go for it. And I mean, we've got
yeah.
40 trades. As we say at the start of every season, oh, we've got trades up our sleeves, but I mean, we can pivot if need be. And yeah, there's so much value on offer that it's silly to pass it up. And he is definitely one of those. So for me, he is, some might say a consider, but I see him as lock when you consider their fixture as well. Looking really, really good. Collingwood,
Mm.
Richmond, Essendon, St Kilda, Hawthorn, then Sydney, North Melbourne in the first few weeks. So don't mind him at all without Butters. Next up, we have Joe Berry. So he took a while to get into the game, and as we know, the role isn't necessarily super coach friendly as a half forward. Looks to have decent job security, but his scoring potential will fluctuate, so will probably be a slow burn. Probably similar to a Kako maybe,
Yeah.
but Kako was pushing up the ground as well, and Berry
Mm.
was doing that in match sims and stuff, so maybe he does that in the season proper. Only scored a 48, did Berry. 14 disposals, 2 tackles, 86% disposal efficiency. I would say at this stage, probably a consider because I think his job security is going to be very good. It's just his scoring is the one thing that might hold him back, and he's going to be a slow burn. You probably go with a slow burn. Do you go with both Kako and Berry as 2 slow burns? Maybe not. I think for me, they
Yeah, it
kind
might
of
be
fit
tough.
into one one spot in your team. So you
Yeah.
just have to flip a coin and work it out.
Yep, agreed. Next up, sorry, I agree with that. He is considered, it's not currently in my side, but I mean, the rookies are all kind of placeholders anyway,
Yep.
um, at this stage. Next up, we've got Sam Powell Pepper, Powell Pepper, Powell Pepper, depending on
PayPal, PayPal
how you
Pepper.
like to call him. Returning from injury, SPP could be a decent cash generator if he can maintain his usual averages. I think he goes at like an average of like 70 every year.
Mm,
So
consistent.
pretty consistent. Job security is solid, but he may be eased back into full game time. I'm pretty bullish on his job security. I think he's part of the
Hmm.
leadership team, so I just don't think
Yeah.
he's going to be dropped. Like
No.
it's a weird would be a weird thing to do. Supercoach score of 75, 19 disposals, 82% time on ground, 3 tackles, 2 goals, 2 behinds. Um, he's in my side currently just because I think
Mm,
he should make enough cash. He should have enough good enough consistent enough scoring to make cash
yep.
quickly.
Yep. And with that role, his role in scoring isn't dependent upon CBAs. That's a big thing. He loves
Yeah.
tackling. He's a pressure forward, kicks a few goals here and there. And as you said, he's very, very consistent historically. So I much prefer him over someone like a Tom Lynch, which people were going for at a similar price point. Key forward in a arguably maybe another wooden spoon team at Richmond. His scoring's going to fluctuate, Tom Lynch. So I much prefer Pal Pepper, more consistent, has great job security. And for me, he's been in my team pretty much all preseason. Taken him out a couple of times just to see how things look, but he's back in, and I am very bullish on him. So for me, he's at minimum a consider, but for me, in my team at the moment, he's a lock.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Consider slash lock.
Very good. Well, let's move on to Jeremy Finlayson, and a role change to defence saw him pick up plenty of the ball. If he continues in this role, he could be worth considering, but at his price point, it is a risky call. Scored a 113, 29 disposals, 13 marks, 2 kick-ins. Now, Liam, is this a trap? It sure looks like it.
Yes.
There are guys missing from Port Adelaide's defence, but if he continues playing the way he is, Does Hinkley be like, yeah, keep him there. Do what you're doing.
Nah, there's too many people missing. I just can't. I don't
Is he
know.
the new Houston, Liam? Is he the
Mm.
unlikely Houston replacement? Imagine that. Sure played like it.
Uh, you pick him then.
I'm not
Um,
going to. There's no way. No way. I had him
when
in my
I
keeper team and I dropped him like a hot pie and I stomped on the pie. That's how much I
did
really
anyone
enjoyed.
pick him up? Oh, let's have a
Yes.
look.
Yes, someone picked him
Uh,
up. I think
I
it might
mean,
have
I don't
been
think it's a
JG.
bad pickup. I don't think it's a bad pickup in a draft, but
No. It was
um,
with a late flight. Oh, it wasn't too late, but I was like, good luck.
nah, nah, he's a no for me. He's an
Yeah.
avoid. I'm happy to pick him up if he proves me wrong.
Mm.
Too risky, too risky.
Yeah, if they had a full team and he was given that role, I would say, yeah, I'd be more inclined to say, yeah, okay, he's
Yeah.
worth a flyer. But with guys out of the team yet to come back in, which could push him out of that favorable role, yeah, for me, at best, he's a proceed with caution. But for me, he's an avoid
All
for
right, you know
sure.
what? No, actually, I changed my mind. There's a new category.
Yes,
Adding a sixth category, I think it is. I think that's what we're up
drop
to
pie.
now. Dropped pie or absolute trap.
Yeah, absolute trap's a good one. Actually, yeah, that applies to so many that we've spoken about. I'm looking firmly at you, Jaden
Dylan
Short.
Shield.
Oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
oh Dylan Shill as well. Yep. Sorry. I was imagining Jaden Short's face in his headshot. Oh God. Anyway, Liam, who do we got next? Oh, it's the next
Next
game.
up,
Eagles
next
North.
game, Eagles North. Lots of relevant players here. Bo Allen, absolute nightmare of a game for poor
Oh,
Allen.
was it
I feel
ever?
so bad for him. Scoring
Uh,
minus 12 thanks to six disposals at 17% disposal efficiency with four turnovers. I'm so sorry. I feel so terrible saying this. It's unlikely. I will say though, I
he's
like
funny.
it's up from here. It's up from
Oh
here.
yeah.
Like,
The only way is, as we
yeah,
say, the only way is up. Though you've got to come on the show. We'll play that song to you, and you'll turn your form around.
that's it. I can't imagine he has another performance like this, but it does highlight a risk in selecting him just because he was able to put out that minus 12. I think a lot of people are going to be jumping off. With defensive rookie options already looking thin, I mean, I think he's one to avoid unless we see drastic improvement or we see no other defensive rookies picked, selected, and we have to go with him. Sorry, Bo Allen.
Yeah. Well, if it's any upside here, I do remember a champion of Carlton and one of my favorites, Kate Simpson, in his
That is
first few
true. Yeah,
games, he was like virtually statless. I don't recall because I don't know if SuperCoach was a thing back then, but I don't recall if it was to the point of him having a negative score. But yeah, it would have been yeah, quite unfavorable. Let me see. Round. No, it doesn't even go back that far. So I can't even see. But yeah, I mean, there's upside there, Bo. Look at Kate Simpson. You'll be right, mate. But Liam, what was your verdict? Sorry, I had a micro nap.
I
Is
don't think you
it?
can pick him. I just really don't now. I feel
Oh,
I
really?
don't know. I don't know.
Could he be another one
Oh,
of your men? What's his name from West
Chesser.
Coast? Could he be a Campbell Chesser 2.0?
Campbell Chesser. Nah, sorry.
He might be the opposite of Campbell Chesser because Chesser actually was like not
Hey,
too
I
bad,
will
and then
not take any negative talk about Campbell Chesser on this podcast.
oh, he's your like your spirit animal. Is Campbell Chesser. Um,
Oh,
I would say proceed with caution, I think, or pick with caution, I think, with Bo Allen. I think he's going to get opportunity, which is obviously a
yeah.
good thing. So there's upside there in the sense that they're going to give him time to settle in. And to the eye, I must admit, early days, he actually looked in that game, didn't look too bad. He did a couple of nice things. I think he gave away some free kicks.
Yeah.
Disposal efficiency was obviously putrid, and that was a big thing. Four turnovers out of the six disposals. Of course, you're going to be a negative score. So I still think there's upside there because the
Yeah,
only way is up, literally.
I don't know. I think people are jumping. I haven't even looked at his ownership, but I think people are jumping off, which I understand. He's still on
Yeah.
53% ownership. So maybe I do need to put him back in.
I'm I'm virtually going to say I'm waiting to see how Patton performs because
Yeah.
he's probably the main one who's going to take his spot. Or, of course, Pryor, who I don't have in my team at the moment. Um,
Yeah. So
so
I've
yeah,
currently got Pryor and I've got James Leake and Zach Reed as my three rookies.
yeah, okay. I've got Allen, Leake, and Reed, and Allen's still in 54% of the competition, believe it or not.
Hmm.
So interesting, interesting times. But yeah, he's kind of vying for that one spot. alongside probably not
Yeah.
so much Patton, probably I would say Pryor. Um,
Yeah,
but
I think
yeah.
that's fair.
Um, Alrighty, so Matt Flynn, next up. So interesting one here. So he played as the clear number one ruck for West Coast with 83% of the ruck contest, 23 hitouts, and even hit the scoreboard with a goal. This level of ruck dominance gives him strong cash generation potential, making him a fantastic option for the flex spot in R2 or R3. If you're looking for a mid-price ruck, Flynn is a serious consider, especially, as I said, in that flex spot. Scored a 98, 83% ruck contest, 10 disposals, one goal, and 23 hitouts. For me, he's a consider, not yet a lock.
Yeah, no,
He
that's
was
fair.
in my flex position to start with, then he got taken out. I do have money in the bank to bring him back in at the expense of someone. That's the only thing. I'd need to potentially take out someone like a, which I could
Sanders.
potentially do. Oh, yeah, like a Sanders maybe, or even I was going to say Kako, because I'm a
Oh
bit
yeah.
worried about his consistent scoring
Yeah.
and being maybe a slow burn. So, because I've got what 100 and something in the bank, 187K in the bank, but I might need some of that to bring back in Jaden Short because I took him out briefly as we discussed this because I got some flashbacks. But yeah, Flynn, I do like. He's a consider for me, especially in that flex spot because Cherry and TDK are lock and load as my R1 and R2.
Yeah, I think it's too big a risk to put at R2.
Mm,
And he's too much cash to put at R3. You've got to have
yeah,
him in flex.
yeah,
Um, or I mean, you could have him in R3 if you're swapping with Boyd if you think Boyd's going to score better, but I don't imagine he will. The biggest issue with Flynn's going to be his job, not job security necessarily, but his injury history, like his
yeah.
ability to be on the park. That's probably my biggest concern. I don't think they drop him for anyone else.
No,
Um, I don't think anyone else is going to have the same level of ability in the ruck, but yeah, that's it. So he's a consider for me as well. He's currently in my flex spot.
yeah.
Moving on, we've got Harry Sheasel, 36 disposals, 6 marks, a goal, elite ball use at 89% disposal efficiency. What more do you need to see to have him in your side? Sheasel spent more time in the midfield with 16 CBAs and still found plenty of the ball across halfback. Lock him in,
He's a lock and load, Liam.
lock and load. And if you don't start him, I reckon you're already behind.
Oh, I thought you were going to say if you don't start him, you're insane. Well, Liam, I would go as far as saying that because Kent Bruce has gone completely mad if you do not select him.
Ken Bruce has gone completely mad!
I said it early in the unofficial match sim, and someone got offended by it. It happens. That's fine. But again, justified by Sheasel, came out and said, you know what?
170.
You've got to select me. That's what he says. You've got to select me. Are
I was
you
like, don't
mad?
do it. Don't do it and see what happens.
Yeah, exactly right. That's literally what it comes down to. So, Liam, what is he?
Lock.
Yep, lock. Literally
I
lock him
actually have
in.
nothing more to say. Just don't even, just that's it. Just lock him in.
Yep.
Just do it.
Yep, exactly. Unless you want to be hurt watching Sheasel every single week with him not in your team, it's kind of like early days with Dacos, I imagine,
Mm.
early days with Sheasel, really, because he's an absolute gun. He's been doing it since the beginning of time. William, let's move on to the next player, Finn O'Sullivan. He looks solid in a wing role, collecting 18 disposals and 8 marks while going at a reasonable 72% efficiency. His price means he needs to deliver some bigger scores to generate strong cash flow compared to those that are lesser priced, and the wing role is known for fluctuations. However, the higher price tag does make it easier to downgrade if needed. A watch list option rather than, I guess, a must have. Scored an 88, 18 disposals, 8 marks, 72% disposal efficiency. For me, he is a consider, I would say.
Yeah.
Maybe bordering on proceed with caution just because of that higher price
Yes.
tag in comparison
Yeah.
to other cheaper midfield rookie cash cows.
Yeah. I agree with that entirely. Nothing more to add. He's a consider, is a low end consider for me kind of
Yeah,
thing. Like it's not high end. It's not pushing into that lock territory at all.
yeah.
Next up, we've got LDU, and he was strong in the midfield, finishing with 23 disposals, 19 CBAs, 3 tackles, and a goal to boost his score to 118. With injuries hitting some premium midfielders, he's definitely worth considering as a unique pick. The only downside is that he is in the round 12 bye, which might make him tricky to fit into certain structures. Um, for me, he's still in the mix for those looking at a sort of a mid price premium, I
Yeah.
want to call him. Like, he's not that. upper echelon of the 600s. Is sort of that lower end, or mid level price point. Not a mid pricer, but a mid priced premium.
Mm. Yep. Well,
Yeah, I don't know.
mm,
He's like a consider for me, but
yeah.
like I haven't really considered him.
Yeah. I was going to say the exact same thing. It hasn't been in my team. I haven't even thought about him really
No,
too
but
deeply.
like if I see him in someone's side, I'm like, oh yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah, you can see it.
Like
Yeah. Look, yeah.
I don't dislike it
Mm,
as an option, just not for me.
yeah. Yep. Yep. I totally agree with that. All of that sentiment there.
I
Um,
mean, I just look at it price wise, and you're 40K off a Sarong,
yeah,
and I
exactly.
kind of prefer Rosie at almost 50K cheaper,
Mm.
or more than 50K cheaper, I think. Yeah.
So next up, we do have Caleb Daniel, and Daniel continues his elite seagull tendencies, finishing with 26 disposals at a silky 89% efficiency, 5 tackles and 3 kick-ins. He's set for a huge year, and his ability to rack up disposals across half-back while taking kick-ins makes him one of the safest defensive picks. If you don't have him in your side, you're playing a very dangerous game. Ownership should be 100% Liam. Scored a 113, 26 disposals, 5 tackles, 89% disposal efficiency. He is as silky as they come, and 3 kick-ins. Really, we've spoken about him ad nauseum in this role that's been vacated by Zeeble, Zach Fisher, Aaron Hall, all these guys, and they've
Aaron
all been
Hall.
able. Yeah, remember him, Aaron Hall, all been able to perform like absolute legends. And Caleb Daniel in himself is actually a really quality halfbacker, as we know when he was at the Dogs.
Yeah.
So he's going to be a really, really nice player. So
Lick your lips.
lick your lips, lock and load.
Lock and load. Perfect defense. And he's going to get DPP as well.
Oh, yeah, he will too.
Oh, no, he won't. Sorry. He's already a midfielder. He's a mid forward.
Yeah,
So
okay.
he won't get defensive. So he's already, I mean, he's got mid. I don't know how, but anyway.
Hmm.
Yep, lock him in. Simple as that. Next up, we've got Tristan Cherry, and he was an absolute beast in the ruck, racking up 34 just hit outs, 16 disposals, and 14 tackles in a preseason game on his way to 141 points. I can't. Who tackles that much in a preseason game? His
Oh,
defensive pressure
as a
and
ruckman.
ability to rack up tackles, yeah, exactly, and rack up tackles provide a strong scoring floor, making him one of the safest ruck picks. Almost against Flynn, he dominated, which is a great sign for his season ahead because obviously Flynn's, I mean, not a top echelon ruckman, but a solid ruckman nonetheless.
Mm,
It's not like he was up against a Reedy or a a Boyd who's junior ruckman.
yeah.
Another player you can confidently lock in, if you ask me. 16
Yep.
disposals, 79% rack contest. Yep, just lock him in. Do it.
Yeah, exactly. He's worth the price tag, and he's not even the most expensive ruck in the game.
No,
So really, get him in. Get him
that's
in.
it.
Lock and load. Next up, we have the next game, Dockers against the Demons. So first up, we have Luke Ryan, and he had a solid performance, but his score was inflated by 10 kick-ins, something that we won't see every single week. His scoring is highly dependent on Fremantle's ball movement. As we know, if they slow play, he racks up touches. If they move quickly, his influence diminishes. Keep that in mind when considering him. We saw both sides of that coin in 2024.
Yeah.
A lot of us jumped on him when he was racking up the touches. And then when Freo changed the game plan and they moved the ball quickly, didn't share the ball around the defense, his scores plummeted. So scored the 99 points in this game, 26 disposals, 6 marks, and 10 kick-ins. For me, he's a proceed with caution based upon his role. We just don't know if it's going to change any given week.
Yeah, the worry for me is that he had 26 disposals and 10 of those were kick-ins.
Yeah, it's very true.
Like,
Yep.
so he's only really had 16 disposals.
Yep.
Outside of that, I mean, you could say that for other players as well, but it's just a
It's
bit more
true.
worrying. Um, so yeah, for me, he's probably a pick with caution. Just because I think at his price point, there's other players that I prefer.
Yep.
Um,
Agreed.
yeah. So next up, we've got Jordan Clark. Played the rebounding role well, getting plenty of the footy and taking 25% of free kick-ins. Role seems secure, and his high disposal count helps build a strong scoring base, especially with those kick-ins. He had 6. The Demons absolutely butchered the ball
Mm,
in terms of the goals and behind. So there was lots of kick-ins in this game. He's a viable defensive option if you ask me, if you're looking for someone at that sort of lower primo price point, so sort of that mid 600, mid 500s um, price point. So Supercoach score of 117, 28 disposal, 7 marks, and 6 kick-ins. So he is a consider for me. He is in my side currently.
Yep, I agree. He's definitely considered. He's not in my team at the moment, but I can see the appeal. Um, Definitely an option, I think, in terms of like his price point is a little bit cheaper than Dane Zorko. But yeah, just that game style. I think of Ryan, and I think, well,
Mm,
I mean, Clark was impacted last season, but not as much as Luke Ryan. He's not as dependent upon getting the cheap, easy kick-ins and peel. But yeah, I do like him. He's definitely a consider. Next up, we have Caleb Sarong, and Sarong didn't really do anything special, really. Just going through the paces. He only played 3 quarters, yet still finished with a decent score. He was tracking at 1.3 points per minute, so expect better numbers once he plays full games. Scored a 93, 20 disposals, 1 goal, 59% time on ground, and sat out the last quarter, as I mentioned, with 16 CBAs. For me, Liam, he is a lock. I really love, I mean, especially in light of Bont going down, Butters going down. He's kind of one of the guys that you need to have in your team to pay up for because it falls away in quality from then on, apart from a couple of value guys. But for me, he's a lock.
yeah, likewise. He's got the round 13 buy off the top of my head, which is
Mm,
the good one, which
good
is
one.
only them and St Kilda off memory. So Freo and St
Yep.
Kilda, so covers basically every other buy. He hasn't left my side since since Supercoach opened. And I don't imagine he will before round 1. So lock him in. Lock him
Yep.
in. Next up, we got Andrew Brayshaw. Put on an absolute clinic in this game as well, using the ball cleanly with minimal turnovers. Played a big midfield role and made it count. If you're considering a premium mid, I think he's a relatively safe option. He doesn't. He's a funny one. He kind of hasn't really shown us a really strong ceiling average, but he does have that ceiling score, but he can sort of just have those lower scores as well. So scored
Mm.
the 133, 22 disposals, 4 tackles, 91% disposal efficiency, and 23 CBAs. I mean, you don't really look at primos in these games and worry too much. Um, but he did himself no harm. I don't have him. I have considered him though, so I would have
Mm.
him in the low end of consider.
Yep. Yeah, I've got him in consider as well. Uh, yeah, he's just the. I've had him in the past and I've been burnt, probably an element of that. So yeah, he's probably a consider. But yeah, we saw in the back part of 2024 when he was finally fit, the heights that he can reach and the step that he can take in his game next up. So yeah, definitely consider. Next up, we have Nathan O'Driscoll and Noddy. His versatility could help his job security with Longmuir, praising his ability to play inside and outside. His endurance was evident, but with a likely mix of midfield and wing time, his scoring could fluctuate. A potential rookie option, but not a must-have. Scored a 50, 17 disposals, 8 marks, 2 goals, and 13 CBAs. Um, yeah, for me, I think he's a consider. Yeah, he's definitely not a lock because I think there are other guys you could justify in his
Yeah.
spot. Sartas being one of those at a virtually equivalent price point, Sheldrick a little bit lower than that. But he is in my team at the moment. So he is, I must say, even though he is a consider, in my side, he's locked in at the moment. And there's something drastic changes in terms of my structure. So I do like the look of him.
Yep, I agree with that. He's in my side. He is a consider because I don't think he's safe in my side necessarily. I
Mm,
think there could be some movement of rookies if I need to.
yep.
Um, Next up, we've got Murphy Reed. Had an underwhelming outing with a low points per minute and poor disposal efficiency at just 64%. More concerning is Longmuir's uncertainty about his round 1 selection when he was asked after the match. Um, if he plays forward more, um, which he did play a little bit in this game. It could affect his scoring. A bit of a risky pick for now, if you ask me, just without that sort of certainty about what his role is. Scored 50, 14 disposals, 4 tackles at 64% disposal efficiency. He is not in my side, and I would say he is a pick with caution.
Mm, yep. At best, yeah. Pick with caution. Yep. I agree with that. Moving on to the Freo ruck, Liam Reedy. He struggled against Gorn, no surprise, managing only one hit out to advantage and a miserable 15 points. With Darcy
Sorry.
returning his job secure. Huh?
No, I'm just saying sorry. I feel bad if we write these
Oh,
things.
but it's true
But
though.
15 points is not, you're not happy. Like, you wouldn't be happy.
It is miserable. Miserable is the word for it. That's
Yeah.
100%. Um, with Darcy returning, like his job security is non-existent, not really worth a spot in your Supercoach team. Three disposals, 17 hit outs, 64% right contest. Did struggle as well in the games that he did play last year in
Yeah.
2024. Has been able to smash it at the lower levels in the waffle, but
Yeah.
can't really translate that as yet. It could be like potentially another Meek. Like Meek was maybe a similar sort of
Yeah.
prospect when he was at Freo, and then got opportunity and more mileage into the league's experience and looked pretty good. So at this moment, I would say avoid.
Yeah, I agree. He's not in consideration. And I just think with what's name coming back in,
Mm.
Darcy probably in round 3 or 4 off the top of my head,
Yep.
it's just not worth it. He's not going to make cash.
Mm.
And especially if he's scoring 15s, he's not going to make
Yeah.
cash.
And they got Jackson as
Um,
well that could play in the
yeah,
ruck.
exactly. It's just not worth it. Next up, we've got Jed Adams, bit of a surprise packet from the D's. Solid game from the young key defender, going at 100% disposal efficiency. Um, Defender rookies are scarce, as we know, so he should be on the radar. But as a key position player, his scoring will be a slow burn. I'd also say his job security is questionable with Petty um, not playing, and obviously being able to play that defensive role if he's
Mm.
not thrown forward for some reason. Um, Supercoach score of 54, 9 disposals, 4 marks. It is what it is. I think he's one to pick with caution, but maybe just have in your back of your head just in case we do need to swing him in.
Yep. Yep. Could be another Blake Howes from the D's
Yeah,
as well as we saw in 2024.
exactly.
So could be an option, but at this stage is an avoid until we see anything else, I think, for me. Moving on to Christian Petrarca. Looked great through the midfield and forward, but left points on the table with 2 missed shots on goal. If he spends more time forward, his scoring could be volatile, as we've seen in the past, especially in 2024. He's a premium pick, but with some risk at his price. 126 he scored, 33 disposals, 8 marks, and those 2 behinds with 17 CBAs. I do like him. A lot of people didn't really. He was in my early team, I will admit. Um, I was more worried about his that role, playing more time forward, and I was worried about psychologically him not potentially throwing his
Yes.
body into
Yeah.
contests. Looks as though he's back to the track of old. 556.2K could be a very very nice value selection, but for me, I would say consider upgraded from a pick with caution, because he could still output similar to what he had in 2024 if he is fit, knock on wood. But yeah, for me, he's just a consider at best. He's not really a lock.
Yeah. I think if he was 50K cheaper, I'd consider him more
Yep.
strongly. I just think at that price, I can't really fit him in
No.
like with others. And I'm just a bit worried about him in general psychologically. I know he's
Mm,
played a while, but yeah, I don't know. Just mindful of that. Um, Longer term. So yeah, consider for me, but sort of lower end.
mm,
Consider. Next up, we've got Clary Oliver, and he is back. A full preseason has him looking sharp. And while he spent some time forward, he did still have 15 CBAs. If those numbers increase in the season proper, I think we'll see him back at his best. Scored the
mm.
134, 28 disposals, 3 tackles, did kick 3 goals, one, and had 15 CBAs. Yeah, I just think he's severely underpriced.
Yeah.
Like, he should be able to smash out hundreds and make us some cash.
So a lock.
Lock.
Lock and load. Next up, we have Harvey Langford. He played an outside wing role, which isn't ideal for Supercoach. His score did suffer due to poor disposal efficiency. If he improves that, he could be an option, but right now he's not on the radar. So only scored the 43, 11 disposals, 64% disposal efficiency, and 1 CBA. He's probably maybe a consider, but yeah, maybe a proceed with caution. Um, yeah, I think there
I
are other
think he
better
gets
options out there.
picked.
Yeah, his
Like,
job
I
security
think
is
he's
probably good.
named. I can't imagine he's not named, but I just don't
Mm,
think his scoring is going to be that great. I think there's other options that will be better.
Yep. Yeah, agree.
Last player, Max Gawn, dominated in the ruck, absolutely schooling Reedy. Um, Ruck dominance is still there, even at, I don't know, he's like 32 or something, isn't he?
Yep.
Um, at his price, though, you're paying a premium, but he is still one of the best ruck options out there. I think at one stage it was one, not at the one stage, at the end of the match, it was one hit out to advantage to Reedy to 11 hit outs to advantage to Gawn in that direct matchup.
Oh,
So
wow.
just absolutely killed it. Scored 116, 18 disposals, 91% ruck contest. So playing a lot of ruck, 4 marks, 46 hitouts. Big numbers for Gorney. I think he's a consider. I don't have him as a lock just because I don't really want to pay the price that he is. I don't want to pay 600 and whatever K for someone who is 34, 33, whatever he is. I don't know.
Mm.
Just made that up.
668.9K years.
Yeah. Max Gorn. How old is he?
33?
33. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
33. Um, but yeah, I just don't think I can justify that. I'd rather go with a TDK, see if he can make some cash, even if
Mm.
there's the risk when Pitnet is back that he impacts him, but then it might be a case if you swap over to Gorn then. But yeah,
Yeah.
he was in my side to start the season, but now TDK is the pick, I think.
Yep. Yeah, and obviously 121K cheaper
Yeah,
is
I
a
can use
TDK
that cash
compared to
elsewhere.
Gorm. So that's a big chunk of coin. Yeah, as you say, you can spread across the rest of your team, which is very crucial for your starting lineup. So for me, he's a consider, but yeah, I think there's, as we said, better value in Cherry and TDK.
Yeah,
Well, Liam, is that it? Did we have any more players to discuss, or is we pretty much exhausted all options?
I don't think there's any players left in the competition.
Yeah, I know we've gone through every single one, and we appreciate all of you sitting through this. No doubt you would have skimmed through as well, which is probably the smarter thing to do. But again, hopefully there's enough there for you to go on. You've appreciated the amount of detail that Liam, you have poured into this. You have used your time wisely with your leg elevated. Did you have to elevate your leg with your knee
Yeah,
issues, or?
sometimes I do.
Yeah. Nonetheless, you've used that time wisely to recover and also do some homework on the I guess which players we need
To
to
pick.
keep an eye on
Yeah.
for our starting teams. So, Liam, thank you again for all of that homework there in compiling that incredible stuff. And if you have missed it, and you are a fan of all things visuals, graphics, Liam, you've put together a few graphics, posted them on our Twitter page. So go and check them out at supercoach_edge, and you will be treated to that. But that's it, Liam. Thanks for your hard work. Thank you for tuning in, the you people of the Supercoach Edge community on YouTube, on audio podcast, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen to us. We do appreciate it. And we will be back with another edition. We'll see you then. Cheers.
See you guys.